All right. That's good, y'all. Welcome back to the Onyx Report, where we as Black male justice advocates uplift Black men and boys using critical analysis. Hope everybody is well. Pretty busy day today, but it's all good. Your boy just gave a lecture to a class at Harvard earlier today. Shout out to the good brother that invited me. I don't know if he want his name out there like that, but he knows who he is. So much appreciation, good brother. Hope all is well. So, oh man, yeah, that's what's up. I mean, I hope you all are doing pretty well out there. Much appreciation. Everybody that came through a little bit earlier. Like, share, subscribe, join, and donate if you will. Support the channel so we can continue to bring this independent Black male thought to you, and keep pushing conversation. So that's what it is. Y'all know what it is. You can become members to support the Onyx Report right here on YouTube. There are levels of membership you can participate in, or you can go over to Patreon and support through there. You can support the Onyx Report show. You can also support the Institute for Black Male Studies, or you can support the Onyx Report, or excuse me, the Onyx Network, which you can find on Amazon. Oh, just way too much. My system is acting a fool today. All right, hold on. Damn it. Man, sometimes, stuff be looking basic. It's pissing me off. Anyway, my apologies. And one of those kind of days. You can support through Venmo, PayPal. You see the Cash App right there. You can go ahead and support through there. As I was saying with Patreon, you can also support through Patreon, but the Onyx Network was what I was trying to talk about. You can go to Amazon Fire TV, Roku, download it there, or download it on your phone, be it iPhone or Android. It is 24 hours a day, 365, so you can support in a number of different ways. As we try and get the word out there about what we're doing, what we're talking about, and what kind of things we'd like to see happen. So make sure you find ways to support. We are broadcasting today on innerlightradio.com, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, Twitter, and of course, YouTube. So you can find us through all of those at your disposal. Shout out to everybody that came through early. Much appreciation. I'm listening. What's going on? Fabrication Unlimited. What's up? All right, we got Ron. We got Officer Faulkner in the house. Clarence, Jay Daniels, Dr. Thunder. Good to see you, man. Hope you're well. Busy Mike, what's up? Mark Tuggle, what's going on? Good to see y'all in here. Afro Disciple. You know what I mean? Got the brothers coming through. So much appreciation for the support. Let's see, AKs and Curtains, what's going on? Electrician, what's up? No one, what's going on? See a number of the brothers in here. Sincere, appreciate that super sticker. Raheem, what's up? All right. High Scholar, what's going on? Ain't seen you in a minute. Hope you're well. All right. They Live, what's up? Of course, we got AKs with the support. Much appreciation. All right. Child of Light, what's going on? I'm listening. So, y'all know, I like to have a good brother come through as often as possible, as long as he will grace the show. Help me drop some of this on y'all. So let me go ahead and welcome good brother BGS IBMOR in the house. What's up, man?
No, Doc, can you hear me?
Hold on. I gotta mess with my sound.
Okay, can you hear me?
1 second. I got you in
Okay.
the wrong section. Yep, I see it. Okay, try it now.
All right. Okay. That's what happens when you sitting in master control, man. One button makes a big difference.
Yeah, that last bathroom trip will mess up your whole regimen, man. Damn it. I gotta roll real quick. Come back in and ain't nothing ready, man. I'm all over Inner Light looking at me sideways. Like, come on, man.
Come on, player. Hey,
what's
up? What's up, player?
Yeah, man. Messed up my whole thing, man.
Yeah, nature. Hey, when nature calls, nature calls.
If you're gonna be doing a little bit of time, you got to be ready. So it is.
Be ready. Yeah.
Had to secure dinner for little man and get him up. Get it together. So we good.
Hey, well, little man ain't so little.
Yeah, I know. We getting better on the driving, so he getting it together.
Yeah, well, did he hear me when I said eyes open, ears open, mouth shut?
Nah, you were in the earpiece. But he's getting better. So
he's getting better. Okay.
We doing the drive to and from school every day while he got the permit. So it's getting a little better. I'm not freaking out, screaming.
And getting life lessons as we drive, huh?
Yeah, that's how it go, man.
That's how it go.
So a couple things I wanted to go through, and then of course when we get to the main topic, I got some things to throw at you that you might find engaging. But please do get the likes up, hit the like button as you come in, and again support the show. Like, share, subscribe, join, and donate. All right. So first thing. Let me go ahead and set this up. So y'all know, and I haven't done it in a minute. What's up, brother Damon? Hope you're well. I haven't done it in a minute, but y'all know we do the Sacred Black Masculine series over here, and that's fairly organic. However, it crosses my desk, whatever news I have to share about the brotherhood, I try to do that. So we will continue that tradition today. I saw something the other day. I said, you know what? I'm going to shout some of this out. Move some things around. All right. So first things first on today's agenda for the Sacred Black Masculine series. I don't know how many of you can see that. Try and enlarge it a bit. Where no one has gone before. And then in small type at the bottom, the brother who says Jake. So if you're not familiar with with what that refers to, I will point you to an article. It gives a little more description. And for you Trekkies out there, you should appreciate this. And so back out of this a little bit. We will try it again. There we go. All right. So Star Trek reveals Sisko's return.
Okay.
This is Benjamin Sisko for you comic book heads. From our favorite captain over there. Says Captain Benjamin Sisko, the former commander of Deep Space Nine space station, has returned to the Star Trek universe. You can find this in the Star Trek. What is it? What's the name of the Star Trek #1? First installment of a new line of Star Trek comics, filling in the continuity gap between the end of Star Trek Voyager and the film Star Trek Nemesis.
Okay.
It fulfills Sisko's promise where he comes back. So I will put the link in there. I don't want to go through any more spoilers that don't need to be gone through. I want y'all to be able to check it out for yourselves. But for those of us who dig Avery's work, as far as his performance as Benjamin Sisko, you got the return of the man himself.
So, they must have cut him a nice size check because he was not positive about doing it again. So,
well, this is the comic book for now. So we don't know, what that's going to mean as far as these shows that they're doing.
Okay.
And I just went through just the very beginning of the article, so there may be some more information in there, but I saw that and I said, man, I got to share that real quick. So, it's beautiful to see his first word coming back is Jake, his son.
Okay.
And so, had to shout that out real quick. Shout out to Benjamin Sisko. All right. So the next one up, some of you guys may have seen this. I don't know if you had a chance to, BGS. I don't know if you got to see this little clip here. And I'm just going to go ahead. I am going to show the video. Hopefully it doesn't blow up in my face. But there we go. So this is a clip of a brother, a hero, a security guard who stops a man who comes in with a pretty extensive rifle. See if we can check it out real quick. Actually, I don't remember if there's any sound on this. So let me double check in case there is. Make sure that we include it. Sometimes this stuff gets by me. But anyway, let's see. So, no. So, it's a gunshot. See the brother there. And he ends up fighting the man with the rifle. And he's holding him down. Yeah, man. Look at that. I'm just curious, how many of y'all saw this?
I didn't see it.
Look at that.
No, he faked him out like it was jump over the desk and then rushed him. Okay, good move.
Rushed him, yeah. And I don't know how many people are doing that, but shout out to this brother. So this is a security guard. Speaks after close encounter with gunmen at the Hispanics United of Buffalo.
Buffalo, was a black man.
Yeah. Let me see if I can enlarge this. Look for one transformer. Look what happens. You see what I mean? Anyway, doors are reopened Monday at the Hispanics United of Buffalo after several have faced a chilling close call of a gunman stepping into the methadone clinic with what police say was an AR-15. Security guard of the clinic, Reynaldo Beckford, tells 7 News reporter Yoselin Person he sprang into action after seeing the person with the rifle. Right? Says, my back was turned to the door. When I turned, I saw in the corner of my eye, I saw it was the person in a rifle, Beckford says. At the moment, I couldn't believe what was happening, especially when he let off his first shot. And that's when I knew that something was definitely wrong. Ronaldo says he worked in the security industry for more than 20 years. And when he had a close encounter with the gunman, he was in survival mode. When I had him and the rifle, I started saying, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And that's when he turned back. The security guard says he stopped fighting for a while. And that's when the other security guards started coming down the stairs. Ronaldo says the gunman wouldn't take his finger off the trigger, so everyone had to put up a fight. That's real talk. That is real talk. In a video, it shows the suspect was being tackled and his gun was taken away by what Ronaldo says, a janitor who works at the facility. I'd be lying if I say to you I wasn't scared for my life. The first thing that flashed over my brain was my baby, who's just turned 3 years old.
Wow.
Security guard says he doesn't want to label himself a hero. Instead, a man just doing his job because that's the business I'm in, to save and protect, and that's exactly what I did. District attorney says the suspect, 48-year-old Jeremy Griffin, is facing several charges. 2 security guards and 2 civilians who, in my mind, took nothing less than a heroic action. Flynn says they did not worry about the safety of themselves. They were concerned about the safety of the people who were around them. Ronaldo says he'll consider seeking therapy, and the clinic is looking into increasing security. Nobody lost their lives. Nobody got hurt. And to God be the glory. What else can I say? Yeah. So shout out to the good brother right there, because
but black men don't protect, right?
Oh, that's what I heard, man. I heard that we never protect. I heard
we never protect.
It's always about it's about us and only us, right?
You
know, so I find that interesting. Nevertheless, you have a brother doing that very thing. So shout out to brother Ronaldo. What's up, AB? See you in here. Creative Force. What's going on? Prince Johnny. Right. I know Charles saw it, you know, and doing the work he's doing, you know. Yeah. All right. So anyway, shout out to the brother, man. Incredible work. 260 people watching. Like, share, subscribe, join, and donate. Support the channel. Okay, so let's deal with it. We can go ahead and get to the core of it. Now, for those that don't know, BGS turned in a fire video the other day. You want to kind of tell them a little bit about what you were doing?
Oh, okay. This is something that it's you know how you get a serendipity. Somebody asks you for something, so you go looking and you find something that's unexpected. I was looking for I was actually looking for the divorce rate of black men. So I kept typing in, and trying to, you know, search and find things that were applicable, right? But I couldn't find it, and I ran across this chart that that said that seemed kind of out of whack, where like the marriage rates for everybody else was higher than the divorce rate except for one, and the one was black women. Black women's divorce rate is the only one that's higher than every other woman, higher than marriages, and it's almost by double. And they're the only ones. They're the outlier. So I thought that was interesting enough to make a video out of, because I've been saying for the last 5-6 years that black women are the most divorced and the least married, and that's been in the literature, but the thing is, it's never been in a chart. And to find it in a chart that at that level, man, like I said, it kind of shocked me. Like I said, I had to go take a drink and lay down on that one, because it was so shocking.
And I had to go lay down after you told me about it. And then I was reading through the comments of the video, and multiple brothers had to go lay down for a minute.
Yeah, because it's depressing, because, you know, we talk shit about women in the black manosphere all the time, man, but we never, you know, and you kind of know the scope of the problem, but until you actually see it in your face, it doesn't hit you. And it hit me at that moment. Yeah.
Shout out to W for the support. Says Disney Princess Tiana was a divester. Okay. Damn. Shout out to Mr. Blue Collar for the support to support the PhDs and the BGS tax. Much appreciated, Mr. Blue Collar. But yeah, man. I mean, we can go through it. I don't know if there's anything in the text you wanted to share, but this particular document you can download the PDF version of as well.
I do believe I put the link in the chat if you scroll up for the piece.
Oh, Dr. Smith says that was an excellent video. Yeah, he's shouting you out.
Appreciate you.
Yeah. So, but I put the link in the chat again. It will also be in the description box once we're done tonight, so you can always come back and find it. And you know, I just want to make sure we promote that culture in the space of documentation, because you know this stuff disappears quick, man.
Oh yeah. Well, this is what I doubt this one is. This is a national center for marriage statistics, for marriage and divorce statistics at Buffalo. So
Yeah,
this is a national center, it's actually recognized by the federal government. So,
yeah.
but the thing is that what's interesting is this doesn't include the men. This is only the women.
Hmm.
So it's not mixed. It's not flat maleness or flat blackness. It's only the women.
Only
and
the
this
women.
is the and this is show you how out of step black women actually are. And I was reading in the literature that black men's marriage and divorce rates are similar to white men's,
Okay.
very similar to white men. So it's not us. In fact, they're the only group that's out of step with everybody else.
So let's go ahead and break this down. So this is figure one:
Mm-hmm.
women's marriage to divorce ratio and marriage and divorce rate by race and ethnicity 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, this is pre-COVID. This is
Yes.
pre-pandemic. So we can speculate as to whether these numbers have stayed the same or increased one way or the other. Shout out to MLR for the support. So supporting my black male scholars as always. Much appreciated.
Much
Appreciate it.
appreciated, MLR. Always coming through.
Always coming through. So we can see this here, and this is what now the term in the title, the negative marriage rate. That's my terminology. I'm not attributing that to this, but this is one of the reasons you can see why. So you want to go ahead and break it down?
It was if you look at it, okay. Um, the marriage rates are the numbers in black, right, with the little dots next to it, okay.
Mhm.
And then the divorce rates are obviously the bolded orange color, okay. Those are divorce rates, and then the ratios are in the bars, okay. The bars show the ratio, okay. um, and the ratios are actually between the two, okay. So even though with black women it still looks like a positive, it's actually not, okay.
Mhm.
So it should have been represented as a negative, but it wasn't. So it's represented as a positive number. The thing is, it's not.
Yeah.
But if you look at it, okay, um, your Asians, your outlier women, your Asians, your uh, Native Americans, what we call it, are actually out on the far right,
And
okay,
other.
and others, right. So all the people that don't fit in the main three groups are actually in the others, and they have the highest marriage to divorce rates. They get divorced the least and get married the most. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, and then second is the Latinos, okay, which so when they talk about money and poverty and all that kind of stuff, um, is the reason why black women don't stay with black men. It's not true because black Latinos are as a group are poorer than we are, but they
Mm.
have the second highest marriage to divorce rate, right? Uh, as far as the nation is concerned.
Right.
So um, and then then we're going to go to the white ones, right, which is closest to us, right. That's where most of your 50% comes from because they're the vast majority of people in the United States, right. But they have even though it's 50%, they still have a positive marriage to divorce rate, okay.
Yeah.
And when you look at the black ones, for a moment it doesn't make sense because it should fall in line. Even though their marriage rates are lower, it still should be a positive number, right. But when you look at the divorce rate, okay, the black woman's divorce rate is almost as high as the marriage rates of everybody else.
Mm.
And that's what
Mm.
shocked me. Okay. Okay. Our marriage rates are where the divorce rates are. So in other words, it's a mirrored image, it's a reverse image of what everybody else is. Black women are actually reversed to everybody else.
Yeah.
And that's what's stunning about it. Okay. That's what's
Mhm.
stunning about it. Black men, that's why I want to do a chart of black men. Black men and white men are very similar. In fact, they're very close as far as marriage, the number of marriages to divorces, right? It's right around where white men are, right around 50%, right? Black women are the only outlier, you know.
Mm.
And you got to remember, women file for 80% of the divorces.
Right.
So when I say when I actually talk about the divorce, actually the divorce rate in the black community is about 70%. Okay, this is where it's coming from. If everybody else is 50, okay, black women blow that out of the water. And the only thing that keeps the divorce rate down for black women is because the marriage rate is so low.
Mm. Damn.
But black women will not address this.
Well, when I do, I can anticipate some of the responses that brothers are going to hear if they
Hmm.
engage in this conversation. And usually, the primary response is deflection, right? The
Yes.
It always comes back to black men. I mean, I remember that meme. I saw somebody use it very recently. The meme
Hmm.
of I got to find a way to blame black men for this.
Yeah, I saw that. There was, I think, it was Grinch.
Man. And I remember when that meme first came out, man, it had me dying, man. I was just, oh god,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. When it succeeds, is what
it's
black girl magic, right? And when you
yeah,
get a chart like that, guess what? It's black
mhm.
men's fault.
Black men's fault, right? So, and that's one of the things that brothers who engage in this discussion are going to hear as a deflective get back, a dismissal, from actually dealing with the realities, uh,
Hmm.
but this is what we're facing, this is what we're seeing, and this is also, somewhat of a, I don't want to put that. Some of the SYSBM that we talk about is reflected in this, not as the cause of the high divorce rates, but as a response to it. I mean, because at the end of the day, you tend to have more black men that are married than women,
Hmm.
right? So the question comes down to where's this coming from, and what impact does it have on black men? So this is the ethnicity piece. Now, I think the other two pieces that go with this will help us develop a composite picture of
Hmm.
what it is we're talking about. Now, before I move from this one, and I'm going to come back to it, but before I move from this, is there anything else you want to say about it?
No, I mean, basically, it pretty much tells the story. I mean, once you see how the numbers are flipped, and black women actually the mirror image of everybody else, then that's all that needs to be said.
Yeah,
Uh, now the why that is that needs to be explored. But thing is, on its face, it doesn't make sense. It's an
yeah,
outlier. That's how come I had to go lay down and say this doesn't make sense.
oh,
I didn't know. I knew it was bad. I didn't think it was this bad.
yeah, yeah. So black women's but marriage rate was half their divorce rate, and their
Hmm.
divorce rate was around where every other group's marriage rate
Marriage rate
were.
is, yeah.
Right? So it's what I call the negative marriage rate, even though that's not the terminology they use.
Hmm.
Uh, I just wanted to give people a sense of what I meant. Now, this particular chart here is dealing with
Hmm.
educational attainment. Anything you want to
Hmm.
say about this?
You know what? Um, it's kind of harder to get your head around it.
Yeah.
Uh, about educational attainment, it makes sense because what are the two biggest factors in divorce?
Mhm.
Marriage and divorce is money and sex. Uh, but also there's a third part called compatibility.
Okay.
And since you talk about a narrower range of people,
Mm.
um, it's harder to find. Yeah, but Doc, at your level, it's harder to find somebody that's compatible with you at your level. There's fewer people, so if you get one, you tend to stick with her,
Mm.
and vice versa.
For years, if you
For
can.
years, yeah, you put up a whole bunch of stuff. So that's part of it, yeah, right. And then the money piece is another part of it. So it
Mm.
makes sense that they would have a higher marriage rate and lower divorce rate because there's fewer of them.
But I think that one of the core things that we notice is
Hmm.
that, obviously high school starts on the far left, and then all the way to the right, you have master's plus. And
Hmm.
so if you look at the marriage rate, you see that the numbers, tend to go up as far as that. So, with education, we see increased marriage. The highest divorce rate that we see is for those who've had some college,
Hmm.
right? Those who've had some college. But then I've seen other data that suggests that the divorce rate, especially for Black women, tends to go, and for women, I think in general, if I'm not mistaken, tends to go up with education. But in terms of this particular chart, is showing us that some college plays into the highest divorce rate on the chart,
Yeah.
right?
But also, listed high school has what you call the negative marriage rate, where the
Yeah.
divorce rate is higher
Yes.
than the marriage rate,
Right.
which makes sense.
Yeah. So the two
But
critical points are less than high school and some college.
yeah,
It appears.
yeah, and I think one of the biggest factors is economic because as you more move toward a more complex, advanced society, right? The people that used to not need a high school diploma to actually go out there, actually make a living and make a life, is less and less and less. It's harder.
Hmm.
So that makes sense. So as the society gets more complex and more expensive, then you're going to have to move up to the higher ranges.
Okay.
Women are gonna have to seek men with more abilities, more money, more abilities. That makes sense.
Okay. So let's go to the third component that this report gives us. And this is a breakdown by age. So we're
Hmm.
looking at marriage rates, divorce rates by age. Right. Anything you want to say about this?
Um, this is also a shift, right? Of not only the complex society, the way we teach our kids, but also when people are actually most valuable. Because the man doesn't reach his maximum value or close to his maximum value till he gets 35. Okay,
Hmm.
I didn't put the chart in here, but I had a chart that said in 1960 the prime age to get married for a man was 21. Prime age to get married for a woman to get married was 19, right? That
Hmm.
was in 1960. 60 years later, as you become more uh, technical, more advanced, more expensive, and more sophisticated, right? More complex. Okay, then a man at 1920 is gonna have a hard time supporting the family.
Yeah.
Okay, because the jobs and the industry and the economy doesn't suit him anymore. It suits the man that's maybe college educated,
Right.
maybe has a master's or been on a job longer and established himself. It suits him more because at 35 he's way more valuable than a 20-year-old, right? So guess what happens? That age is going to shift. So instead of it being the majority age uh, to get married at, in the 18 or 15 to 24 range, is actually going to move up to what, the 25 to 34 range. Why? Because the
Right.
man's value is just starting to come into its own at 30. So the
Yeah.
women are actually going to seek men out at those levels. Or in fact, women's ages are actually shifting up because of that.
Hmm.
Because the peak age to get married, the most advantageous time to get married is when the man is at his maximum value.
Yeah.
So you're going to shift your timing or your age to get married closer to that. So that's what you saw. You see this move toward the 25 to the 34 range. If you look at the dots on top about getting married, okay, um, the highest values of the prime age of marriage, like the of baby making, right, um,
Mhm.
are the ones 25 and older. Okay, it used to be 15 to 24. Now it's not. So you actually see it descend. Prime age to get married is right around that 30-year range, and it goes down from there. And it doesn't. You don't see the young folks catch up until you get to seniors, and seniors really don't get married.
Mm.
So the so so that's what you see. This is actually a reflection of the economics, just like the what's been called the educational chart. It's a reflection of your economic society.
Well, the interesting thing about this is you actually see the higher divorce rate over the age of 65.
Yes, that's the great divorce. Yeah.
Yeah, and explain the great divorce.
Um, what's happening with the great divorce is really two things. One, okay, you get married, and basically marriage is built for children. Okay,
Hmm.
and number one, especially with great divorce, when marriage was actually formed, a lot of people didn't survive to these ages. Okay, so
Yeah.
your average lifespan until you get to the 20th century is like 40, 41. Okay, so now the 20th century we have shifted. So now we're living older. So
Mhm.
basically, all your children are grown by the
Yeah.
time you get to great divorce, and the reason that you were together with that man for so long no longer exists. So, and
Mm.
women think they can do better by themselves. Now I want to be happy. Okay, I've raised my kids. I've been a dutiful wife. I've been a mother to my children. Now I want to go explore. That's where the great divorce comes in.
Well, let's look at something related to that, but a
Uh
little
huh.
bit earlier. Um, this is, let me see here. Let me try and open it up a little bit. So, this is an article you can find on MSN.com. It says, young mother, 27, behind on bills and rent,
Mm,
took daughter and walked in front of train.
mm-hmm.
Right. So, before I go, my computer is hopefully temporarily freezing up.
Come on, Jarvis, get it together.
You know, there we go. All right.
All
So,
right, come on, Jarvis, keep it
yeah,
together.
yeah. So there we go.
She's
That's
pretty.
it. Yeah, cute little girl. You know, this is what we're dealing with, and I'm showing this. And we're talking about this because we're looking at the impact on black men. So we
Mm-hmm.
know In these spaces, Black men have been having these conversations about our worth, our value, how we should be received in terms of questions about family formation. And, in the last few years, especially considering we just came through a pandemic, all of these questions about independence, what role men play, do men have any value? We're starting to look at the fallout of this because we're seeing at every turn, we're
Hmm.
seeing women killing kids, we're seeing divorces, I'm seeing people celebrating getting divorced, even though they don't have a pot to piss in. But this article just really kind of, it kind of broke my heart in a certain way. But in another, this is something that you've been talking about on YouTube for a number of years. And I remember a discussion we had years ago where we were talking about, what things would look like if the support networks were pulled from under Black women's feet. The support networks that many Black women decided to, kind of skip out on Black men to engage. And as
Hmm.
we started to see these support networks pulled,
Right.
one thing I remember you saying when somebody engaged you about it, like just wanting to see what life would be like for Black women without the same support networks that they've kind of lorded over some Black men.
Right.
Uh, you actually made a statement that I'll never forget. You said you ain't gonna want to see that.
Yeah. You don't want to see see the environment that this is actually going to happen.
Yeah, and I think this is what we're seeing.
Hmm.
Uh, so this came out yesterday. It says a young mother who was behind on her rent and bills gathered her 3-year-old daughter in her arms and jumped in front of a train. An inquest is heard. Lagan Malsadi Redmond, 27, had been taken to court over unpaid bills before jumping onto the tracks of Taplow Station in Buckinghamshire on February 18, 2019. She was seen wrapped in a poncho walking hand in hand with daughter Melcity, who was
Hmm.
wearing a little furry Parker jacket with a winter
Wow.
hat and gloves at the station 1 hour and 12 minutes before their deaths.
Wow.
Describing CCTV footage showing the mother and daughter today, Assistant Coroner Ian Wade KC told Beaconsfield Coroner's Court, "Sadly, what we can see is that she gathers Melcity up in her arms and jumps carefully from the platform down to what is known as the forefoot and is then struck by the train.
Mm.
British Transport Police subsequently declared the deaths a suspicious incident. Detective Sergeant Rees told the inquest that a financial investigator had examined Miss Redmond's circumstances prior to her death. Court heard Miss Redmond had a bill from her electricity supplier of £334 outstanding, a bill
Wow.
from her gas supplier of £638, and
Wow. Oh, it is.
rent.
Yeah, yeah. This is what's going on in London, in the UK. Wow. Yeah.
She was in rent arrears of £1,499. A
Wow.
brother on Facebook calculated that at roughly about $5,000. I didn't do the conversion, so if that's incorrect, somebody correct
No,
us.
with the pound to the dollar is pretty close, so it's about
You know,
$1,500 now. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, that's just what was communicated.
Hmm.
But I appreciate that. But
Hmm.
I mean, look at the level of debt in relation to. Now we can also say that she might have been having some, severe depression, psychological impact. All of those things are factors.
Hmm.
Nevertheless, loss of life
Yeah.
or that amount of money.
Yeah. 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 And you're getting ready to put out of your house and during the dead of winter. Yeah. You and your
The debt
daughter.
of winter. Yeah.
Hmm.
They said she had debt in several forms. She was behind on her rent. On the day she had received news that some of her debt burdens had been relieved, if she
Hmm.
had entered into a payment agreement, which she did, and she was
Hmm.
supposed to have started a new employment, so her financial situation was potentially going to change.
Hmm.
Wade asked the officer, "I think your financial investigator looked at whether she had made a voluntary arrangement in terms of indebtedness through court proceedings.
Hmm.
Is it right that the outcome of that was she had an arrangement whereby she would be able to repay it down a
Hmm.
monthly £143 contributions, and they kind of go from there. So
Hmm.
yeah, but
Yeah.
we're seeing variations of this. I mean, I've reported on this in the last couple of months here in the U.S. You have been seeing this, more
Hmm.
and more. Usually, we hear about fathers who kill their families and then themselves, but I've been seeing in the last year more accounts of women doing this. So, in relation to what we're talking about, right? We just, kind of looked at the marriage rates, the divorce rates by age, by education, and by race. What would you say about these kinds of cases?
Um. Basically, this is when you get severe economic stress, right? You've seen this in at various times when any society comes up under economic stress or any kind of environmental stress,
Exactly.
where women and children actually, rather than suffering, they rather take themselves out, or women killing their children because they don't want their children to actually suffer. So
Yeah.
uh, during the uh, um, during the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, right, we're actually putting people on the street and people jobs are getting taken during that crossover. You see the old story about the baby being left on the doorstep and the mother starving or freezing to death, or
Mm,
of babies that can't be taken care of being sent off to swaddling homes. Swaddling homes are actually places where they send babies to die. They keep them,
mm.
they wrap them up, keep them comfortable, but they don't feed them. So they literally actually starve to death.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this happened during the late 18th century and the early 19th century, especially in northern England and northern America. So anytime you have an economic stress like this, where women can't see their way out, this is what they do. So I'm not surprised. I'm surprised it hasn't happened more.
Yeah. Yeah. And it just might be. So that's it. I mean, in terms of the economy, I don't. I think we're far from out of the woods. We're heading into winter. I can tell you, even in Fresno, it's gotten into the 30-degree range already.
Hmm. Hmm.
So as the season commences, we don't know.
Yeah.
I would suspect we'll see more of this kind of thing. Um, anyway, so that's one of the elements. The other angle I wanted to kind of throw at you because I thought this was an interesting kind of reflection too, considering what we're dealing with. This piece here on Vice News or Vice.com.
Hmm.
Nobody wants to get pregnant. The end of Roe is ruining America's sex life.
Mm.
So, all right, a fear of an unwanted, even dangerous pregnancy is kind of a mood killer, sex therapist told Vice News. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up, this whole question of the end of Roe, unwanted pregnancy, the impact of sex, is because we're talking about marriage, we're talking about divorce rates, we're looking at all of these factors, again, post pandemic, and we're asking the question, is this playing a role into any of that as well? How is this whole question of avoiding pregnancies and dealing with potential, ruining of America's sex life? How is that playing into everything we're looking at, especially as it relates to men? So, just to get into this, so this is dated November 15th, right? So this is yesterday.
Hmm.
In Missouri, a couple of non-monogamous women have stopped inviting partners with penises into their bedroom because they're too worried that one of them will get pregnant and be unable to end the pregnancy. Some
Hmm.
Floridians are having less penetrative sex or cutting down on sex entirely, including among couples. A few
Hmm.
polyamorous people in Wisconsin are even asking potential partners to have a vasectomy before sex.
Hmm.
Right? Roe v. Wade's overturning is arguably the greatest earthquake in Americans, sex lives and generations. And these accounts, recounted to Vice News from sex therapists across the country, are just a snapshot of how the overturning is already rewriting people's approach to sex, dating, and intimacy writ
Hmm.
large.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense. It
Now
makes sense.
we're fresh off of people transitioning back outside and this kind of celebratory air of going to concerts again and
Hmm.
having sex. I've even had people talk to me about having not being able to have sex for months, if not the last couple of years.
Hmm.
And now you have this kind of whole impact, right? So we're kind of seeing this, and I'm questioning what kind of impact this is going to end up having overall. But it says this alarm bell is above all of our beds right now, says Dr. Justin Garcia, the executive director of the Kinsey Institute at Indiana University and a scientific advisor at Match. Right, the fear of an unintended or even dangerous pregnancy that ties your life to a less than ideal partner is making it difficult for people to not only want to head to the bedroom, but to even have a good time once they're there.
Hmm.
A
Yeah.
survey of 5,000 plus single Americans conducted by Match and released Tuesday, nearly 80% of singles of reproductive age are also said age also said that the end of Roe has changed their sex life, with 20% saying they're more hesitant to have sex at all. Gen Z respondents were particularly nervous. 27% said that they're more than hesitant about sex. Any
Yeah.
thoughts?
Oh, yeah. It makes sense because you don't have the get out of jail free card anymore.
Oh, yeah.
And that's going to impact your decision because I know when I was younger, it impacted me. I had less sex because I didn't want to, you know, be tied to a string of children with a string of women,
Mm.
and how it's going to impact me financially, because I've seen people get destroyed
Oh
by
man.
child support and
Oh yeah.
get tied to a baby mama that he couldn't stand.
Ooh, 18 years.
18
18
years
years.
is when you've got one of their kids.
Ooh. Yeah. I mean, I think more than a few brothers have had to roll the dice on that one.
Hmm.
And you spend that time period where you're waiting to find out.
Hmm.
Yeah, oh God, you talking about the two things I was most afraid of was, I remember when HIV was just coming out, and
Hmm.
everybody, they didn't really have a clear outline on who could get it and how, and so it was getting tested. It was the time period that you
Hmm.
had to wait to get the results, and
Hmm.
that the only thing that matched that feeling was when she would call and say, "I'm late."
Okay.
And she had to go get, she got the test. So the time period you had to wait on
Hmm.
either one of those was terrifying, man.
Hmm. Two words you want to hear: I'm positive, or
Ooh,
or it's yours.
anyways, it's weird, man, because when I got married, it was hard to turn that off. So when my wife was like, "I'm pregnant," my first reaction was, "Oh shit." Oh, wait a minute, I'm married. It's okay. Okay, it's
That's
good.
okay. Yeah, it's good. It's a good thing.
The knee-jerk reaction, boy, was, "Oh damn, I ain't ready for this." Wait a minute, I am ready for this. I'm good. But oh man, they're saying sex therapists are now hearing many of the same sentiments. They told Vice News, although not everybody is responding the same way. The degree to which clients feel affected varies by their gender, demographics, and geography. Therapists in the abortion haven states of New York and California, for example, said their clients remain relatively unconcerned about Roe's impact on their lives. People with the ability to have babies, particularly single people, tend to be more worried than people who don't. Right. Um, I'm going to skip through some of this. Okay. So I literally just had a client this week who's polyamorous and is like, nobody wants to get pregnant. We have to be on with our birth control because none of us in this relationship and none of our
Yep.
metas,
Yep.
uh, our partners of our partners, goddamn, want to usher in new babies. Right.
Mm.
Some type of barrier method is super important for her right now. And I hear that more from, I will say, the Missouri folks than I do from the Pennsylvania folks. Black and queer people are also feeling extra cautious, Brown James said. National maternity mortality rate among non-Hispanic Black women is almost 3 times the rate among white women. Often my clients say, "What hope do I have of possibly surviving this process?" Brown James said. And that's really scary because it's factually sound. And it's even worse in the Black community when you factor in age,
Yeah.
you know.
Yep.
And I've argued there's a number of features that contribute to this, but it also includes a culture, I would argue, in the Black community of, I think there's an overall culture in women in the West that you can have babies late,
Yeah.
but I think it's a bit compounded in the Black community because we've added in this whole notion of, I don't need men, Black don't crack.
Yeah.
When you add all of these kind of factors and beliefs together, you kind of get this idea that, folks can wait till they're damn near 50.
And then add in feminism, where they say that you're just like a man. You can
Yeah.
reduce as long as up until the age of like 50, up until what is it, menopause?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is not true.
Which is not true. But I've pissed off a lot of people by saying that. But I'm like, look, I'm not saying that our culture is the only factor, but I am saying it's got to be
Oh,
part of the
huge.
discussion.
Yeah, huge.
Yeah,
Yeah,
especially
yeah.
when
Look
you raise girls to believe that they can wait as long as they need to.
hmm.
So I think there's some dangerous precedent being set.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
you know,
And black women marry later than any other culture anyway. They always have.
yeah, yeah. Um, so let me see. Is there any more in this I want to deal with particularly? Here we go. So a quarter of respondents to the Match survey said that they plan to use condoms more often. The
Hmm.
shift in contraceptive habits is perhaps unsurprising since Americans have a history of changing their birth control based on political events. After all, when former President Donald Trump won the 2016 election, IUD installations surged by more than 20%. God damn. I wasn't expecting that. An IUD is a long-acting and reversible contraceptive that's implanted behind the cervix and can last for years. In the days after Roe's June overturning, searches for terms like IUD, Plan B, and contraception all
Hmm.
spiked. Right?
Right.
Uh,
It would. Yeah, it makes sense.
Doctors and patients have also reported rising interest in more permanent forms of birth control like vasectomies and tubal ligations. One doctor in Wisconsin told Vice News that in the last 7 years, she had tied the tubes of just one patient who wanted the procedure for contraceptive reasons. In the 2 months after Roe's decision, the doctor performed tubal ligations on 4 patients who simply did not want to have kids.
Mm.
The quality and quantity of post-Roe sex is far harder to track given all the subjectivity, shame, and secrecy embedded in sex. In fact, the relationship between people's sexual activities and the availability of abortion has long been under research and poorly understood. Let's see here. Okay. All right. So this is coming from Katrina Kimport, sociologist at Bixby Center for Global Reproductive Health at UC San Francisco. She says she studied the gap and found that people, including scholars, tend to think that abortion is a standalone occurrence rather than a domino that falls after a chain of events that include sex. It's
Mm.
interrelated with sex and sexuality, but because of the way we talk about and think about abortion, it's almost impossible to have a conversation about how it's interrelated. So, this whole question of how Roe v. Wade is going to be impacted, or how it's impacted sex, how it's impacted how people act, in intimate settings, and
Hmm.
even how relationships are going to develop from this period in. Do you see any relationship between that and some of the material we went over earlier in regard to divorce and marriage rates?
That means uh, uh, with with the way things are situated now, that means women probably get married even later or not married at all.
Hmm, okay.
So, so you're going to see we're already seeing the lowering of marriage rates as it is, and the only reason that you see uh, the biggest number of people getting married, right? They're already married is because the boomers and Xers are still around. Once we started to age out, guess what's going to happen to marriage? The marriage rates, and the number of people married, that's going to go way, way down, especially amongst Black women. Okay, only thing that's holding up that 27% of Black women married is because you have older people that are still married,
Hmm,
because younger people aren't getting married.
yeah, yeah. This
So
is
that's
off.
going to collapse.
I had to throw this up. Officer Faulkner says the definition of F is when your mortgage, car note, your wife, and girlfriend are all a month late.
I
And
think you,
Charles,
I think you got a cash app though. I don't know if you read it or not.
no, and shout out to no one. No one says BS men are we're already having less sex within the past year. The new generations are having less sex already. True.
That is true, but thing is, you got to remember the birth control and uh, and abortion actually fueled the what we call the sexual revolution in the 70s. Okay,
Mm,
to where the casual sex actually opened up, right? So guess what this is going to do? It's
mm.
actually going to start to close it down. So that's a natural reaction. So you get there is cause and effect.
Shout out to Aquatechie for the Cash App. Appreciate
Yeah,
that.
and
Yeah.
plus you don't have the culture of shotgun marriages anymore, where a woman was
Mm,
actually protected by her family in case she did get pregnant.
mm,
So now
mm.
women are out there on their own for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah. Dangerous new world.
Dangerous new world. Yep.
So now, when you factor in, practices like SYSBM and so on and so forth, where do you see this all headed?
It's going to accelerate. It's going to
Yeah,
accelerate. At least until we get all this stuff ironed out, because the old thing about not being able to put put the genie back in the bottle.
yeah, yeah. Real talk.
So these marriage rates are going to continue to actually plummet.
Hmm. And I think one of the only ways you're actually going to be able to get men back to the table is a shift in policy.
Hmm.
That protects men, that allows them to participate without being, punitively impacted indefinitely behind, something that has always been particularly natural. I think that's one of the questions on the table.
Hmm.
but nobody really wants to address men's. Well, I'd say policy in regard to what men need. I think it's we're at a beginning point
Right.
where they're starting to listen because they have to. But this has traditionally been something that for decades they've ignored.
Yeah.
um, but we need to see a shift in policy. That's one of the things that has to happen at some point in order for men, if it is at all an interest on their part to have men participate in this again. It's going to require that. It's going to require that. Um, Speaking of which, I wanted to quickly kind of shout out uh, a new component. This is to Black Male Political Agenda, right? It's still 15 points, but somebody added yet another sub point to family court reform, right? And you can find it here under letter N, right? It says eliminate the suspension of driver's licenses.
Yeah, big one.
Right? No state should suspend someone's driver's license for failure to pay child support. All states have statutes to suspend someone's license for failure to pay child support. Juxtapose this to the 17 states that allow unauthorized immigrants to apply for a driver's license. Suspending someone's driver's license, especially black men's, prevents them from earning a living. This in turn makes life more difficult when many undocumented immigrants are able to get driver's licenses to pursue the very jobs black men may have lost due to such punitive practices. Right. So these are not, policies that I'm writing. Right? These are suggestions coming in by black men themselves in regard to what kinds of policies they want to see happen that will hopefully change the quality of life for black men and boys. And you can
Yeah.
see,
The thing is, I don't understand this. How does destroying the father help the child?
yeah, yeah. It's been
Put him
common
in,
practice for years.
yeah, put him in jail, taking his license, uh, uh, taking away his professional license where he can't work. How does it help the child?
Yeah. And shout out to Queen Kalila. She adds in and passports.
Oh yeah, and passports.
You know, so yeah. But I mean, again, if you want men to participate, if as a society, if you actually want family formations, these are the types of policies that have to be made. There has to be changes made. If you don't want it, continue to go where you're going. Because men have no incentive to participate. When it gets to the point where it's easier to stay at home, I think people are going to be surprised to see how many men are willing to do that. And this is something that we learned during the pandemic. There's a lot of men that learned that, there was life outside of sex. And when they began to find that certain things were manageable, I think it started to change the culture of coupling as far as men's attitudes. Either you had those who were pushing to leave and go to other places to explore their options, or those who were willing to go monk.
Yeah.
And there's nothing like seeing a 14-year-old monk that is not bothered. That's some shit I never thought I'd see.
Yeah. Yeah. When they look at the what they're up against and the emotional labor and the stuff they have to do to be in a relationship, they said, "Nah, I'm good. You should
Yeah.
play video games and watch porn."
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I think they're starting to see the effect of that. They're starting to worry about it. But and it's not going to be till you do something about it. Shout out to Akoteki. I noticed you used that jazz avatar. That's what's up. Used to be my favorite character. But does agree the policy on drivers and professional license suspension is illogical.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shout out to Nameless in the chat. But I'm going to bring people up. But but overall, before we do, is there anything you wanted to kind of say before we bring people in about just some of the stuff we saw today, some of the stuff you reported on the other day on your channel, and just where you think this is all heading?
Because what I want to actually point out, um, especially in this space, that we're always targeted as the problem. Like you said, when it succeeds, it's black girl magic. When it fails, it's black men's fault, right? I
Mm-hmm.
want to have data, like you did when you actually were in the class at Harvard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Zoom class. You actually use data, okay? Actually, data, statistic, empirical evidence, okay, to prove your point, right? I want brothers to actually have this. this knowledge that can say we're not the problem. Okay, if you want to talk about marriage, we always get blamed about marriage not being up at their level, or the, or whatever have you about there's not enough available suitable partners for black women, and it's always black men's fault that they can't get married. Okay, even when they are, they get divorced. Okay, and even though we're only like what is it, 10% of the male population. Okay, they
Mm-hmm.
blame us for why they can't get married, even though there's 90% of men out there that are still available. Okay, how come you are in reverse order to everybody else, to nature, to everybody else? Everybody else has a positive marriage rate except you. Why is it just you? We're not
Mm-hmm.
the problem. You are. Black men
Mm.
don't have this problem, but you do. But you blame us like we're the problem.
Well, okay. The link is in the chat, folks. We got Colonel Panthro. I wonder who that might be.
Might that be?
I don't know. Let me see. Colonel Panthro, you want to say something to us?
Woo!
Ass whipper and door kicker.
Yeah, it's funny when I tell people that they like, you actually did that. Yes, it's majority documented.
Yeah.
Documented. Oh
It's
man.
funny that you mentioned this subject because my grandfather a few years ago, I think it was like 33, 35. I'm at the ripe young age of 40 now, and he asked me, with his North Carolina accent, "Yeah, Charles, why don't you about that age for you to settle down? About to get making woman honest." I
Mm.
looked my grandfather in the eye and stood up out the chair. "Granddaddy," and yes, I call my grandfather Granddaddy. Said, "Granddaddy, the women of my generation ain't sugar honey iced tea."
It's a different reality, man. Even my mother will call me and say, I don't know about these women.
Yeah,
It's a
and
different
then
reality.
Different reality. Yeah.
Doc and BGS, my grandfather looked at me and started laughing. He like, "Boy, don't you think I know? I got eyes." He's like, "Man, how do y'all do with the women y'all did?" I said, "We don't. Sometimes we just don't." It's like, it's the start of wrestling season. I had to reiterate the lessons I learned when I was learning. The best reversal is to never get in that position or to hold in the first place. And that's what it's come
Mm-hmm.
down to.
Mm.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Why would I had to tell a lot of female coworkers, I said, they like, men don't want to get married. I said, how many men like going to the gallows?
Ooh.
I said, let me ask you this question. If your race alone, like let's say you go to Vegas, right? You go to gamble and do whatever you do, and you have an 80% chance of losing. Would you
Hmm.
gamble?
Mm.
Right.
She was like, no. Then why the hell you think you asking us to do it?
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Men don't want to get married, but they don't want to get divorced either.
Yeah. We don't mind marriage. We just don't
Yeah.
like the end of it.
Yeah. I actually think a lot of men want to get married. When I talk to students, that's one of the things black males point out. They want marriage and children. I mean, it's amazing actually how many young brothers in particular, but even men cross race that are very traditional in a certain respect. They want their own biological offspring. They
Yeah.
want to be married, but
They
the
want
cost.
legacy.
When men start looking at them stats,
Hmm.
conversation changes.
That Teddy Pendergrass gonna get aired. I think I better let it go.
You know,
I,
but
I,
you go.
I look at my father, what he went through, with his divorce, and I said no, and it reminds me, like I said this earlier today, the difference between mothers and fathers with daughters versus mothers and fathers with sons is dramatic.
Mm.
Because if you have all girls, a lot of guys be like, well, it's probably the guy's fault. No, damn well he knows how a lot of these women are, especially the ones he's raising.
Hmm.
Compared to when they have sons, you know, the mom is usually like, oh, sugar honey iced tea.
Hmm.
This girl is trying to do the same thing I did to his father. Damn.
Yep.
Mm.
Yep. Yep.
And nobody pays attention to that until it's their kid. And I said, you know what? A lot of y'all don't care till it's your son.
Mm-hmm.
And when when your son's about to call the you know what hotline
Mm-hmm.
because he can't take it. Like, do you understand one of the major things in law enforcement is a lot of guys delete themselves because of bad marriages?
Mm.
Think about this. Not only do you have to pay child support, depending on how long you were married, you have to give half your pension.
Mm.
A person who never even a person who's never taken the pains, the cold weather, the wetness, the danger, they can file to get half your pension.
Yeah.
Mm.
Wow.
I'm like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, disturbing.
That's just dealing with pensions. I mean, I was saying earlier today, the class I was dealing with, we were talking about some of the wealthiest people in the world, and I was pointing out white women.
Mm-hmm.
I said, because who do you think the beneficiaries are when wealthy husbands die?
Yeah. Or to get divorced. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, it reminds me what I asked my father when I was 5. Can a man make a woman a millionaire? Yeah, if he's a billionaire.
That's normally how it happens.
Shout out to AB and Dead Set. Let's go ahead and give AB an opportunity to jump in here since he came in first. What's good with you, AB?
Hey, what's going on, Dr. T? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. What you got on this, man?
Did I hear that stat right that only 27% of black women are married?
Yeah. It's up. It's up from 25. Yeah.
I don't even drink, but I think I need a drink now. God damn.
It's been that way. There's a couple of articles talking about the decline of black marriage. I think it was in New York Times in 1982. I think I'll put that into the record. And then there's another one from the Washington Post saying the same thing. Actually, highlighted. The 70s actually devastated black marriage. Devastated with the high rates of divorce. And then the 80s and the crack era actually took it all the way out. So yeah.
I wish I could say I'm surprised. I'm not, because it's not gonna get any better. I sent y'all a Twitter link to Glorilla's new song, and it's just a straight up advertisement for SYSBN. And to be honest with you, I don't like using this term. I know it's Kevin's term. I don't like it using it because what it implies, but it's just the truth. That song is pretty much saying I want to. Is pretty much a chick saying I want to go die alone.
Yeah,
how bad the song is.
That is an example of the tangle of pathology that Clark talked about in the 60s. Okay, just expressing itself, right? And she's not a glamorous chick. That's how come she's so attractive, right? To the average everyday chick. She's an average everyday looking talking about this, and she actually is actually inviting the average everyday chick to actually do these kind of negative behaviors.
She actually said something very interesting in that song. Because I'm assuming she's a Z, right?
Yeah.
She actually said something very interesting. She said she don't deal with the dudes her age. She deal with older dudes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, it's like did she just admit what we've been saying about disease all along?
Well, this is all women, okay, especially now. Like we were just talking about that, right?
Right.
In 1960, because most of the nation was actually either industrial or agricultural, right? Okay,
yeah, you need a job
without a high school diploma. The thing is, you also needed a strong, healthy body to build a family, right? Okay,
right.
It's less about the mind than the body. Okay, fast forward 60 years later, when it's basically service based, right? Okay,
yeah,
the man has to be more emotionally and intellectually developed. That's past 30. That's going to see the marriage age move. So she would be attracted to the more sophisticated, more mature, more financially able man. That's normal. I mean, all over the world, that's normal. Even though women, it's older women that actually protested because young women that actually come in and raid what they think is theirs.
I'm evidence of that.
Go ahead and break it down, man. Regular.
Man,
yeah.
right there.
Everybody know that my last wife was 19 years younger than me.
Mm.
So, I mean, I could still pull them even at 51.
Mhm.
But I'm not trying. I'm like, I'm going back over there across the street.
Mhm.
I don't want to be bothered.
Going back across the street.
But about
Hey,
the
you're cool, huh?
yeah, man. But about the table that BGS showed,
Mhm.
I'm always interested on the impact that this has on culture.
Mhm.
And because I remember listening to, I think it was on Roger's show today. You were on BGS with
Mhm.
the nameless, and y'all were talking about the mandatory DNA testing, right?
Right.
And it dawned on me because you know how laws work. The law comes into place, and then first, once the population gets used to it, they become inculcated with it,
Right.
and then they start to believe that way.
Right.
And so, with the 15-point plan, or just like with that show that was on earlier today, it dawned on me that some of the guys there did not realize that if you made DNA testing mandatory,
Mhm.
after about 2 generations, it's going to be automatic. If they took it away, the men are still going to carry on with that because we'll become inculcated
Right.
with that.
Yeah.
Right.
And so at the same time, when it comes to this 15-point plan or the things that we want, we getting the ball rolling, I know that's the hardest part. But once it gets going, it becomes part of the culture. And not
Right.
only will the men accept it, the women will accept it too.
Sure.
They'll complain about it, but they'll accept it. And I think that's the only way that we can get out of this quagmire without, beating each other over the head with clubs.
Yeah. Also, you mentioned the dude that put in the taking away the driver's license.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We might want to start with that because if you think about it, that doesn't make the state money either.
Well, on that note, I think I told you about the case in New Jersey in 2019 where the guy the Mexican guy, the state of New Jersey ruled it unconstitutional for them for the state to take his driver's license over unpaid child support. And the reason is that it was a violation of separation of powers for the state.
Okay.
A
Mhm.
lot of your laws are very unconstitutional. I think I'm gonna do it either tonight or tomorrow, talking about gun laws. But staying on the subject, it's shameful that you see very attractive women. I mean, drop dead gorgeous, unmarried, and you see this a lot in the police department. And you're like thinking to yourself, wait a minute. The average man here makes 65 and up. Damn near 70.
Yeah.
You can't pick one. You literally can throw a rock, and 88, almost 90% of the people who work in this profession are men.
Right.
And you're not getting married, but yet I hear a lot of women getting the babies and then sending the babies upstate with their moms, and then trying to put some bogus charges on the dad.
Mhm.
So it just goes down to not only just modern politics, but also the low key raising of how women are not raised to respect men. We're just, like a carpenter, uses a tool as Mr. Butler would say. It's sad because you'll see some guys who are. One of my first sergeants, as a matter of fact, would tell me stories. He's like, man, whatever you do. And this was a white guy. Don't get married. Don't get married.
Wow.
He says you go out here, you're doing overtime, trying to enjoy it. Next thing you know, come home, you notice half your shit's missing. And then next thing you know, you get one of your wife's friends to run over when you're coming into the house, who've been waiting there for you to get there to serve your divorce papers.
Wow. And as a police officer, you've seen this.
Yeah, you'll see it a lot. Like sometimes, I'm gonna tell you the truth, and this is really exclusive. I probably talked a lot of officers out of deleting themselves or the
Mm.
woman.
Mm.
Damn.
I probably saved more lives than I even know just by taking the time and said, look, meet me here. Here's a cigar. You don't smoke. I don't give a damn.
Mhm.
It's relaxation. You drink or don't drink. I don't give a damn. You drink it today.
Right.
Spill it out.
Yeah.
And that's why so many people to this day still look at me as like a big brother to them. Because I'm like, okay, spill it out. And nobody, I mean, damn it, nobody gives a damn about a man, especially men who put their lives on the line daily.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of respect that you don't get. I've already talked on my show. And might add you, I'm sorry for talking too long, but I want a lot of guys to hear me with this. The Padawang's 19, right? His girlfriend, who goes to Morgan's 19. They had a little discussion, and he's like, she says something, and he's like, why can't you just respect me?
Wow.
You know what she says? I kid you not. She said, the only man I respect is my father.
Mm.
She knew that she made a Freudian slip when she was quiet for about 3 minutes.
Mm.
She was like, well, he was like, nah, I got to call you back. And then he called me and he said, yo, coach, it's over. I can't deal with her. The only person you respect is your father. And is that respect out of, and probably don't, because she confused respect as in, daddy, give me what I want.
Exactly.
And
I mean,
that's 19, two 19-year-olds.
Yeah.
Only legally been an adult for a year. Yep. So don't think it's getting better, folks.
Yeah. Let's
But
go
that
ahead.
doesn't bring up another issue where fathers, I mean, because I know we talk about fatherhood a lot, but fathers interacting with their daughters in such a way that,
Mm.
you know, they're not being raised correctly.
Okay.
Because, I mean, not that I'm dad of the year, but I was an absolute disciplinarian.
Mm-hmm.
There was some things that my daughter she just can't get away with.
Right.
Mm.
And the other part about it was, and my mom pointed this out to my ex-wife when we were still married, because she would let her get away with things.
Mm-hmm.
And she told her, she's like, look, when you tell that child to do something, you need to stick to it.
Mm-hmm.
There can be no guesswork. You
Right.
just don't give her any room. And that's the way that I raised.
It's called a standard.
Exactly. It was a standard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, you know, but now that she's gotten away, it's just like, okay, well, I'll clean it up when I finish my case.
Right.
As best you can. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and get Kevin C in the conversation. And then we got 3 other brothers that haven't had a chance to join in yet. So let's start with Kevin. Any thoughts about what we're dealing with today, man?
Yeah. First of all, hello to you, Professor, as the host, and then to all the other gentlemen on the panel, distinguished members, and then to all the folks in the chat. Thanks for letting me up. Appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for coming.
Yeah. So it's always a question about men not wanting to get married, but the question no one really asks why men aren't getting married. And excuse me if I repeat some of your talking points, but I always kind of just go back to the stats. Because when you look at all the women who have kids, I mean, if you're strictly looking at Black women, and this is not a dig at Black women, this is just the status report. 60% of them already have kids. All right, 40% who don't have kids, are they thinking about marriage though? Because they're doing other things that have nothing to do with marriage. They're graduating high school, they're going to college. They're having their hot girl summers, and then they're pursuing their careers. There's nothing wrong with all of that stuff. But your primary marriage age is somewhere between 18 to 25. And 25 is actually kind of pushing it. You're supposed to already have your husband picked out somewhere between 22, 23, and then a few years after that, you need to be married. Yeah. And then, and then when we talk about these kids that are born, most of them are born to, unwed mothers, out of wedlock. That's just the status report. And then we forget that, and I'm not saying we forget about it, but it kind of gets pushed to the side that, and I think it was BGS who actually brought this up about the 1.2 million plus over the last 5-6 years born to, Black women, but by Caucasian, Hispanic, and even some Asian men. So we got non-Black introducing these babies out of wedlock. And people completely ignore the fact that we got 50+% Black men who are never married and don't even have kids.
Yeah.
So right now we got 33% Black men married, 27% Black women are married, and then remember when these Black men do get married, they marry Black women at an 85%+ rate, and Black women mostly marry Black men.
Yeah.
But we also forget about and just ignore why men are not getting married. Again, you got the women with the kids, you got the women who are already obese. Right, they're not doing anything about that. You got the women showing up with 100,000+ student loan credit card debt. They got the high number of sex partners, and then you have toxic women.
And then the biggest factor, Kevin, is basically guess what? What's the length of average Black marriage?
I want to say it's like 5 years.
5 years.
Okay, yeah, so 5 years, and then you got the 80% plus, women initiating divorces. So when people go, well, Black men are getting married. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Who's going to sign on for that? Who's going to sign on for that?
Yeah, because when I talk to young men, I'm trying to hit them up with the stats a little bit, but I also try to give them incentives because you're right. I think you guys talked about this. There's a lot of men who want to produce children, and they want to do it within the construct of a marriage and raise those kids with a good wife and all the other stuff and get them to adulthood because that's what we're supposed to be doing. Otherwise, if you're not going to do all of that, then there's no point in getting married. Because you can get sex right now, you get a whole bunch of other things, you get a whole bunch of other problems. But I mean, it's a dishonest conversation when men are, I think you were talking to somebody one day, Professor, and you said, and a woman kind of shot back and she said, well, I don't look at stats. And you were like, well, how dare we not look at stats? Well, men look at stats. We got to go with the logic. We got to go with the common sense. We got to go with the data. And you can't argue with the data. So when people go, well, Black men don't want to get married, I just start throwing the stats out.
Nope, we don't.
I paint the picture. And then when you do all of that, then at the end of that, you ask the question, why would a man be interested in dealing with all of that when I just gave you a whole bunch of issues and problems? And then you have men are going to start they're either going to start looking for alternate solutions, or they're just going to completely bow out of the whole process altogether. And I'll say one last thing and then I'll close out. You guys mentioned about how the older man, younger woman dynamic. I've lived I've lived, worked, or traveled in over 20 different countries, and I see it all over the place where it's not the older man, younger woman dynamic is not even a problem. And then it's not about the dude being, super handsome. I live in another country right now. You know how many dudes I see out here running around here with nice looking women? They got dad bods, just average dudes working a good job. They're reliable, responsible, and they're not studs, man. They're not super handsome in the face. They're just, regular dudes running around here. They're not muscled up or anything. They're not particularly special or none of that stuff. They're just regular guys working regular jobs, with smoking hot women or, really pretty women. They got the 2 or 3 kids, and I see them walking around with the dad bods, and these women are not bothered by it at all. So, it's like you have women out here looking for the wrong things. So I'll go ahead and close right there.
Well, even the dating coaches will tell Black men here, you got to damn near be a bodybuilder who makes $200,000 a year to be considered a viable catch. But when you go to other places,
and they still won't treat you right.
Well, real quick, I want you guys to, if you haven't had a chance to, and you probably haven't because it just happened just before the show. If you haven't supported it, check out LAR Movement's recent video. And shout out to the brother. I think he's a little ill today. But he still did a video despite being sick called "Are You Ready for Financial Polygamy?"
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and he was talking about the way. Really, I would have we could have actually had him in here tonight, but the whole discussion around how the culture is changing around the finances, around issues that are going on, and how you're going to have to negotiate these different relationships along monetary terms. People living with ex-spouses and whatnot simply on the basis of needing to survive, and then how that affects relationships. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, I just wanted to shout the brother's video out, support LAR Movement, and check him out on that.
That is the weirdest thing with the Great Divorce. You have women wanting to be free and live their best life and divorce their husband, and a year later they have to move back in with him.
You see, I see an opportunity to get me some serfs.
Ooh.
That's just me.
That's another black pill out of you today, sir.
You know what? I'm tired. BGS, I can see him now, looking like, the major from off I Dream of Genie. Genie! What is your wish, master?
Oh my goodness.
I mean, we know there's going to be a certain sect of black men who are going to take advantage of that. I mean, I just might be one of them. I could do without the booty. I just need you all to clean up my house and make sure nobody break in when I'm gone. And I'll lock up on my stuff.
And I'm gonna tell you like this: get you a security system, and get you $100 subscription to one of these websites to get a monthly housekeeper. That's what I'm gonna tell you. Get on Handy or Thumbtack, get you a housekeeper and a security system, because this shit ain't worth it. But let's go ahead and bring in Joshua, and then we'll go Ghostface, and then we'll go to Adam SYSBM. Joshua, chime in on this.
Hey, good evening, gentlemen. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Thank you. First of all, Dr. T, appreciate you having me on my show. I listen to you a lot. Same to you, BGS. I listen to you guys a lot. And you guys are acting as my teacher. So I appreciate you guys a lot. I wanted to make 3 quick points. So I'm 35. I live in Atlanta right now. And, man, the dating scene is so awful, man. It is it's horrible, man. And it's to the point where...
You know what they call Atlanta now? Gynarchy Central.
Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, just think about it, man. Every woman down here looks the same. It's fake butt, fake boobs, fake hair, fake lashes. It's to the point where they all look alike, and I don't know if they men or women. So I just kind of keep my distance, man. And
so you say you don't know whether they men or women?
Yeah, you don't know, because
I was about to ask that.
They wear the outfit of a trainee, so I don't know. You know, so one of the points I wanted to make was every time I have like roundtable discussions with women, and we talk about things like this, and I put the issue on them, as in, where's your accountability? They all say the same thing to me. Well, maybe you're gay. Maybe you should try something else. And it's like that's the first thing you're willing to say, because you can't intellectually debate me outside of your emotions. Every time I say, well, women want all of this but lack this, it's, well, maybe you're gay, instead of, well, what can we do to be better? They're content with just being who they are. So after coming across that a lot, you just go, you know what? I just want to work. I want to work on my side businesses, build my brand up. I don't even want to deal with women right now. It's not even important, because you have to put out so much energy, so much time. Women are coming to the table with a list of demands, a bunch of kids that aren't yours, and for the lack of better words, BUP. Now, if you can use your, imagine, I don't want to curse on this show, but BUP, beat up, you know what? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you have all these demands, but yet you bring nothing of value to me. You understand what I'm saying? A lot of women aren't respecting men out here. They don't respect us unless we do 2 things. We have to be pretty much a guard dog with their emotions. They want to keep us on a leash until their feelings are hurt, or until they want us to attack, and they want to put us back on a leash, or we have to just financially provide everything just to get them to listen to us. It's not worth it, man. It's really not worth it.
Juice ain't worth the squeeze. Huh?
Wow.
It isn't, sir. It isn't, sir. So what that makes me do is, I look at everything as the glass is half full. I go, you know what? Maybe it's time for me to, I was in the Army, so I'm like, okay, let me get back in shape. Let me work on my business. I'm finishing up my master's degree. I'm putting all my energy into things of substance, not just chasing women. You get what I'm saying? Especially down here in Atlanta, it gets really easy to do it because there's so many women. It's so many women down here, but they're literally they only really want to date the top 0.5% of men down here. Athletes, scammers, entertainers, they want to stay in that bracket right there. So even, like, for example, I drive a nice Durango truck, fully loaded, and a girl told me I was broke because I didn't drive a foreign. I said, what?
Was she getting on the bus when she said that, or was she?
It was crazy. She had the typical thought car. She had a Corolla.
Now, did that Corolla have how many dents?
Look, no. Not only did it have dents, the rims were all scraped up, because they can't parallel park to save their life.
See, it's funny that she could have a damn scooter and say, "Oh, you broke. You got a foreign."
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I also wanted to make this one last point before I get on. I believe one of you gentlemen earlier said something about women not respecting men, and it's true. I've had to have conversations with my mom about, Mom, you have to respect me as a man. You know, it was things that, you know, when I was in college, I was homeless. I was a student athlete. I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have anything. I didn't get refund checks, and I was ridiculed. I was called broke. You know, what are you doing? You're broke all the time. And I'm like, well, I'm in school. I'm trying to do something. And when I recently brought those issues to my mom and about how they really deeply hurt me and how I was resentful of that, she said, you know what? I'm sorry. I didn't think men had feelings or emotions. I'm just so used to I'm used to men just going about their day and not speaking on their emotions and how they feel. And the majority of women are like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's like they want us to open up, and then when we open up, we're soft, we're feminine, we're this, because they only want us to open up with certain things. When we open up and we start telling them about themselves, then we're doing too much. You get what I'm saying?
They want you to have emotions and feelings so you can actually understand them.
That's all it is.
Not for them to understand you. Yeah.
You know,
it's from a selfish perspective. Absolutely.
It's a selfish perspective. It is.
You know what, brother? Women never had to learn men, but we always had to learn their asses. See, the only reason they want you to open up is like putting that 30-round magazine in that M4. It's ammunition to use against you later.
Yep, pretty much.
She doesn't care. I'm sorry. You ask any of my wrestlers, you ask my 15-year-old son, they ask me, what's the first thing about women? They have no integrity. And you know what they were saying, man? You coach, you hate women. Then I said, okay, I'm going to tell you the same thing my coach told me. Just live a little longer. You know how many phone calls I get from 18 to 24, coach? I will never doubt you again.
Ooh.
You know what I say? When they say you hate women, I always say, it's not that I hate women. I just don't like you because you don't know how to be likable. And they are stuck. Once you say that, they get stuck because they have to think like, am I really not likable? And I say, yes.
No, you're not.
I always tell them, you've been around me for 5 minutes and I can't stand you. So you're too comfortable being unlikable. Maybe you should work on that. But they don't want to do the inward work. And that's where I'm seeing, at least in my age group, where I'm stuck at with certain women, they don't want to do the inner work. And as a man, we always have to do inner work because we're always trying to get better. But they're just content being who they are.
And how old are you?
I'm 35.
I'm 40. Don't go looking. It ain't there.
They don't make wives anymore. That's the problem.
Well, it's like looking into that. It's like going to, like, you remember when you went to school with your brothers and sisters, and you know it's breakfast, and you want that last Pop-Tart. The box is empty, bro. The box empty. Don't look for it.
I want to ask you gentlemen this, because BGS, you just said they don't make wives anymore, and I completely agree. And I've been seeing so many women on. I had to show my sister this. I said, listen, they don't make wives anymore. It's just a bunch of sluts out here. And she goes, well, no, I don't think that. And so I just started sending her Instagram videos. And it's this video trend on Instagram that women are doing where they're acting like they're having sex. And it's saying, like the caption will say, oh, but he's gone off the perk. And they act like they're getting, having sex real hard, or they act like they're, giving head. And I'm like, why would any man of substance want to date you? And this is how you're doing. Other men shouldn't see how you get down sexually. Other men shouldn't see your body.
Why you think Glorilla is so popular? It's not men that are driving that.
Absolutely.
I know that. Yeah.
It's women. That's their idealized woman now.
Yeah. Well, have you ever noticed that a lot of these women got deeper voices than most men now? Jesus Christ.
I said this. I said the average woman, if you're a woman and you're promiscuous and you own it, I actually respect you. I think the average woman wants to be promiscuous. She just doesn't have the confidence to do it, so they live vicariously through other promiscuous women. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
By the way, I see that a lot. To Glorilla's video. True story. I thought it was a transformer when I first heard it.
I'm gonna tell you. Do you really want me to answer that question that you just asked? Do women live vicariously?
Yes.
let me put it to you this way. You're a serviceman, right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your service as well. Like myself, I was a serviceman and a police officer. The more these chicks see you in uniform, the less morals they have.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It took me years to find women with morals. They how can I say this? Morality to them is if you're stupid enough to play their game. It's like certain martial arts like ninjutsu. Ninjutsu works because you walk into your own destruction willingly. And that's how dating is. You're willingly walking into your own destruction. Now I got a joint lock. Now I got a dislocation. Now I'm getting child support. Divorce. And when you look at a lot of these chicks, a lot of them have a lot of undiagnosed mental illness. Okay? I promise you, watch the next year or two. Go to whatever farm, go to Cash App, Robinhood, whatever you do your stocks, invest in pharmaceuticals. Because these women are going to be using so many drugs just to get out the bed. Because a lot of them are miserable.
But I think what a lot of people, what we have to foreground this in our analysis. A lot of this is cultivated over years.
Yes.
A lot of this is cultivated. I don't want people to leave here thinking that we're making the argument that these women are just biologically tied to this. This is learned behavior that's been shaped and cultivated by policy, by options, and by a lack of incentive to operate any differently. Right. And this is what happens when you get several generations in with that time of framework. I mean, we're talking about, really a cadre of women that have no idea how to even interact with men. They don't know how to interact with men because they haven't had to. And I think it's important we frame that, because that's a lot of why we're having the conversations we are about changing policy, because at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to talk to many of these women into operating differently. It's not going to work until they have to. What were you saying, AB?
Nope, you're not going to do it.
Yeah. So I want us to be clear about what argument we're making, because and most of the men up here are men who have had to deal with this mentality. And the most frustrating part about it is you go from relationship to marriage to relationship to you go for each one of these, and you're dealing with the same issue, the same programming coming from different women. And I bet some of y'all have even heard the same statements almost verbatim from woman to woman to woman. Hell, the woman you marry to the woman you meet at a bus stop, you hear the same programming come out.
Oh, Dr. T, I tell them they come straight out of a comic book, because it's the same script, man. It's the same script. And being a student in the clinical mental health counseling field, once I tell women that I'm a student in that and I'm finishing up, they go, "Oh, can I talk to you? Can I talk to you? I have something to say." And it's like, geez, and I'm agreeing with your point and saying it's a lot of undiagnosed trauma out there, especially dealing with our women, because they want to talk about it, but they just don't know how. And then some way down the line, it's men's fault.
And the therapy is an extension of not being able, because they've not been cultivated and socialized in any kind of constructive way. They don't know how to interact with men. And now that it's getting to a stressor point where resources are falling by the wayside, safety nets are falling by the wayside, the dream that they were sold 3 generations ago about living independently from men is now becoming unfeasible. Of course, you're getting an uptick in psychological and emotional issues. And whether they're resolved and dealt with or not, they're not. Because that's not something they've been.
Good sir, you just made me think about this, good sir. Every majority of the emergency petitions, now they call it behavioral crisis. You got it. Majority of them were women. You just made me just think about that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's funny as hell, because when you sit down and think about it, 2 people you really can't lie to: your therapist and the police. And because we see you at your lowest, you don't usually call the police because your kid graduated college or your daughter got married. So looking at these families, and I swear to God, man, one of the most toxic things you can ever see is when you see a household, 3 generations, no men in sight, and the only male in that house was the youngest one of the generation pool, and he's gay.
Yep.
And he's getting
I've seen that.
And he's arguing with the aunt. The moms are drunk. The grandmothers are drunk. The nephew and the aunt she's calling him all kinds of insert homosexual slur here, and he's calling her all kinds of stuff. And I'm just like, no matter how bad sometimes my family gets, thank God for them. No. You know, and it's like you really see how getting that father out the house, getting that stable, that rock, that foundation out the house. What happens to a house without foundation?
Yeah.
Crumbles.
Yeah. It crumbles. It falls apart, and you can see it. They've been parading for decades. I don't need no man. And guess what? All you need to do is pull the rug from underneath them once. Oh, where all the good men at? I'm seeing so many women with videos on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook.
Oh yeah, TikTok's notorious for it.
YouTube, and I'm just like, they're like, I need a good man. I could cook, I can make love, I could rub feet, but I don't know how to love a man. I said, go blame your mother.
I've seen an uptick in 2 types of videos. I've seen the apology videos to men.
Yes.
I've seen more of those in the last 6 months than I've seen in 10 years. Right? You got the apology videos to men, but the other ones I'm seeing are women who are, I mean, as I showed earlier with the article we looked at, they're killing their kids, they're fighting with each other, just completely out of frame, right? But I think it's and this is something BGS and I talk about a lot. You know, it's an inability to reconcile what they've been taught they can do and the reality of what's happening now. You know, I was looking at just about a week ago, where Biden announced that they were going to be able to do the school loan.
Yeah, they're closing it down. Take more.
Closing it down. Yeah. I'm seeing people snapping even over that because it's just one thing. You know, it's what do they call it? The straw that breaks the camel's back. I mean, it's just another thing that's coming down, and I'm seeing people on social media snapping over things like that. Right?
Well,
I want to bring.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. No, what I was saying was I'm seeing the same thing as well. And what I direct people to do, especially the women, I always say, look, go in the military. They'll pay your student loans back, but they don't want to do it. And it's like, so you want all these benefits, but you don't want to get your hands dirty for 4 years to receive them. You know?
Oh, they ain't gonna get their hands dirty.
Well, yeah, and the other part is if she's 40 with 3 kids.
Oh, yeah, it's too late for that.
Exactly. And but she's got, anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 in school loans, then what? You know what I mean? And so that's kind of so we're seeing the pressure starting to crack that veneer, and there's no safety nets, at least in the way that they've been accustomed to. But I want to bring Ghostface in, and then we're going to bring in Adam. Ghostface, go ahead and chime in on this.
Hey, what's going on, brothers? Dr. Johnson, BGS. Just want to tell you guys that I'm thankful to be here on this panel, and just to give my perspective on this topic. It's crazy too that you guys actually mentioned Glorilla because she's from my city. I hate that song with a passion. It's crazy, but yes, regarding marriage and our women, it's just that they don't respect marriage. I don't know if anybody actually mentioned this already, but it's just that they don't respect marriage and they don't respect us altogether. I mean, which we all know this already. And so, in being a black man, and I know this woman that I actually worked with. Unfortunately, this woman, and I heard someone on a panel actually mention this. About young women being married to older guys, but this woman is married to an older white dude, and she's cheated on him twice already.
Wow.
I believe it.
She cheated on him twice already.
How dare you cheat on Mr. Charlie?
That you know of.
I know, right? It's crazy.
And
And
that's
the
what
thing about it, I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, that's one of the things I want to point out to brothers. You think Zaddy's not getting some of the stuff we getting? Yeah, keep telling yourself that lie. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And she's been pregnant twice by these two guys, and had an abortion 2 times. Both times had an abortion.
No,
Now,
no.
Stoned to death.
Yeah, she rolled.
it's crazy. Now she confided in me about this situation. Right now, because I guess she didn't want to really, because I'm just, a co-worker, somebody that I don't really know the people she knows, so she know I'm not gonna go around and kind of tell her business like that. So she kind of confided in me about it, and I just told her, man, look, you fucked up, and I told her, listen, you need to go, you need to try to make things right with your husband, or either leave, or whatever. But this woman told me, she said, I don't really care about nobody but myself. She basically just told me that. Just that was her words. Like, hey, I don't really care about them. I don't care about being race loyal. I don't care about any of these things. I just care about getting mine and what I want. This was basically her mentality.
Yeah.
So and I just thought to myself, just like, God damn, man, like and this woman is like, she's like 28. She's not an older woman. She's not old. It's not an old woman, man.
Like that, man.
You know what? I would have just said, you know what? You ever heard of Hot Pockets?
Yes.
I would have just called her a thought pocket. Like you need holy water. Like you're disgusting.
Holy water can help.
Yeah. Black, this is something that feminists have been saying for a long time. They want white men for status, not necessarily sex. If they get status and resources from a white man, that's what they wanted. That's why they want them.
I agree, because you can't believe that Eve is being sexually satisfied by that white man she married.
Oh, I know for a fact she's not being sexually satisfied, because she tried to have sex with me on several occasions, and I turned her down, and she's kind of pissed off at me because I wouldn't have sex with her. And it's like, listen, I'm not finna go there with you. Like you've been pregnant twice. I mean, what I look like jumping into that? Like, no, thank you.
She's gonna keep yours.
Right. So I was like, no, thank you.
Just one thing about the older man, younger woman dynamic is that, so in a lot of other countries, it runs a little bit differently. But in the United States, one of the things that I see is that older man's already got himself together. He's got his insurance, his homes, his cars, his businesses, and all this other stuff already together. And he's not really planning on giving any of that up. I've seen women who, when an older guy kind of passes away, or he kind of, dismisses them in divorce or something, they don't walk away with anything. Every now and then they kind of get the benefits, but for the most part, it's a trick bag. They're getting snookered, and they're not really getting what they now. While they're with him, they get the benefits of being with him. But when he is no longer, on the earth, or he's deceased, or when they're no longer with him, they don't walk away with a bag. They're not getting what they're really trying to get there. And I understand what they're trying to do, but it's not working out the way that they're really thinking. So
let me speak on that for a moment, because that was precisely my situation. When she was my wife, she got everything a wife should get without question. But the moment we got divorced and I pulled out that postnuptial agreement, both my wives walked away with nothing.
Wow.
I've been married twice, and I learned that lesson a long time ago. It's like, the first time I married for love, the second time I married for children. That was it. That was my whole purpose. So just to what Ghostface was saying, when you say they don't know what marriage is anymore, the thing is they redefined marriage, because marriage without roles is not marriage. You got a husband and you got a wife, and those are roles.
Yeah.
And so when she was no longer my wife, she was no longer my responsibility. And she thought she was getting off good until we got into the divorce court. And she said, well, I signed the contract with and the judge was like, well, you on the hook for this contract. You don't get anything.
Wow.
If so, a lot of older men are dealing with this in a much more smarter way.
Now, Dad said, I'm waiting on the book, man.
Brother, you got to wait for, look, my court dates end in February of next year.
Mm.
And like
You
I said,
need
when I got
security?
something juicy to report, Charles,
Dan said,
I actually
brother, can I
thought
say
about
something
you. I'm
Just to
probably
kind of
gonna use
add
this
on,
again.
just to kind of add on to it, her husband don't know any of this. He doesn't know if she's been cheating on him. He don't even know that she's been pregnant. So all of that is he's in the dark to all of that. He still thinks that she his wife, at home and all this type of thing, just being his wife, sweet, innocent. He has no idea that she's been pregnant twice by 2 different guys.
Well, she doesn't think so, but he's
Yeah, I
surprised
think he
with what happened.
probably knows.
I think he knows.
Yeah,
Possibly.
That's what I was about to say. Yeah.
yeah. I think he's choosing to ignore it at the time.
Yeah, he's a smart man, and he's got resources, so I'm sure.
Well, I
Dan
want to
said-
bring.
I think- I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dr. C. My bad.
No, I want to bring Adam into this. He's been patient. Adam, go ahead and comment on this. I hope you got your mic together. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys just fine. Can you hear me now, or is it still?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
You're good.
Cool. So,
Go ahead and chime in on this, man.
all right. I was listening to a lot of the comments in the show earlier, and I was thinking about, I was reflecting on, aspects of the black masculinist turn, right? And when we think about the black masculinist turn, we normally think about it in terms of actions that black men take. But something you've mentioned before, which is something I was reflecting on, is also it ties in a lot of the experiences the brothers had here. Is also this withdrawal or the inaction that black men would take, right? When I was looking at some data, for example, they said that 84% of black men voted in favor of Stacey Abrams, and yet she still lost. But when I looked at the actual turnout of those black men, that was where she actually lost.
Okay.
It's not that she got 84% of 100% of the electorate. She got probably less than 50% of the black male electorate, and 84% of that small number voted.
Right.
So if she had full black male support, she would have won. She would have got the 300,000, but she didn't. See, that's the inaction. Those are brothers saying, you know what? I'm not going to vote against you, but I'm just going to stay home.
Right. So they didn't vote Republican. They just stayed home.
They just stayed home. Right. And that's why she lost. That's literally why because if she had those votes from black men, she would have won. And the reason why I'm saying that, she's not married. She's an unmarried black woman, right? If we use her as an example. So when we look at the theme, how does black women's negative marriage rate impact black men? We can see that across multiple spectrums. You could see that if you analyze the data politically, married individuals tend to vote on par, right? The couple tends to vote together, whereas unmarried individuals tend to vote for their particular interests. They tend to vote Democrat, right? What's interesting is now that black men and black women have they're largely unmarried, the correlation over the past from 1972, I was actually looking at data from 1972 to 2020, the correlation over the four-term period, a four-term look back between the black male and female vote has actually been getting weaker. So even though we look at it and say that, well, for the most part, they vote a very close rate, when we look at the correlation data, there's a negative, if you do a linear regression, you can see there's a negative correlation. So black men and black women are separating, right? And it's not just politically. When we look at the father engagement, right? Many agencies, government agencies are looking at, particularly social work agencies and child welfare agencies are trying to find ways to get fathers more involved with their children, because all this data now just proves that without a doubt, fathers impact the children. And if we think about how this impacts black men, think of black men's children, even their for example, the young lady in the article earlier. I was reading a study, it came out in 2009. It's called Fathers in Maternal Risk for Physical Child Abuse. And it found that when fathers were involved, the risk of a mother physically abusing the child was significantly reduced.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
And so when we think about that, how if she was married to the father who evidently had custody of the child, at least at the time she picked up the child from him in the article.
Yeah.
If she was married to that man, her and that child will be alive today. In the article there, that was interesting because they mentioned that it was economic reasons why she committed suicide. But what was interesting here, and I'll just read the last sentence of the abstract. It said, father's economic factors played no observable role in mother's risk for physical child maltreatment. So it wasn't the economic factors. They looked at it bivariate level, looking at married fathers, and they looked at multivariate and found that fathers who were involved and women who were married to the fathers, there was less child abuse.
Yeah,
better cognitive development. I'm sorry. Go ahead, man.
I'll say if you look at say like mouse studies, right, like Mouse Utopia and others, right, they said the very same thing about mice. If the male is there, the mother, the female mice is less abusive to the pups.
You are 5 times more likely to have child abuse or the child sexually abused in a single mother home than a single father home or married home.
Yep.
A father's number one duty is to protect the children from the mother. That's usually the first. And by the way, Adam, I made a study because, you know, I have my PhD in poultry science. I had a study, what you just said. Black men right now politically are doing what I like to call the Batman Begins motto. I don't have to kill you, but I don't have to save you either.
That's something.
And I think you know, when you look at it that way, you know, when you analyze and again, keeping to the theme or tying this all to the theme of how this impacts Black men, when you're part of the same cohort, exactly. Essentially, Black men and women are effectively part of the same community, right? But because the marriage rates are so low, they're actually voting diametrically opposed to one another, right? And if you look at the margin of victory by popular vote and even by electoral college, by using linear regression, I've checked from 1972 to again 2020. And we can see that the margin for victory is getting smaller and smaller, right? So a small enough cohort that groups together can leverage and win with just small percentages. And with Black men and women going so far apart, basically Black women will be advocating for their own interest against Black men and Black men for their own interest because there is no marriage, because they're not voting as a team or as a group.
Right.
This now impacts Black men as far as policy, because how do you get policy? We can get policy passed. What I'm saying is now you have a party that's effectively living in quote unquote the same home, same community. But because there's no marriages, there's no unity in how they view policy. They want abortion rights. Black men don't give a damn about abortion rights. That's, I mean, these are, you know, these are part of the things that affect how marriage specifically is impacting Black men and Black men's offspring.
Can I speak to that? But the reason why that problem exists because most Black women do not see themselves as part of our community. We saw this on Fox Soul with Ice Cube. They see themselves as something different than us. That they see themselves as a separate group from us. I just want brothers to understand that.
Yeah, I've actually heard women say the community is the women. I've actually heard women say that.
That's why I put up Green Man's quote right here, which I thought was interesting. So Black women separated and Black men are starting to figure it out.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, we're a little bit late to the party though, but hey.
Well, the thing is that the party could only go on because it was in our house. Now we come home and start kicking people out, it becomes a problem, right? Because people are having a party in the house and you're paying all the bills. You come home like, who the heck are all these people, right? And that's kind of what's going on, where Black men were supporting Black women the whole time, thinking we're on the same thing. We're out working, we're out fighting white supremacy, we're out, you know, changing laws, getting things done, and then we come back and we see, you know, for example, when you look at the degrees conferred, there was a huge bump in degrees conferred to Black people between there's a huge bump actually in the 90s. But when you look at the rate of degrees conferred, the rate went up for Black women, it went down for Black men. So all these degrees were conferred to Black folks, and they all went to Black women in that period of time, and Black men actually earned less degrees during that time. So we fought for that type of inclusion education, and then that's what happened, and the rates haven't changed since then.
It benefited white women and Black women. It didn't benefit you.
And
Yeah.
now these heifers going around trying to accuse us of being anti-Semitic.
Amongst other things.
You know?
What say it with me, fellas? When it succeeds, it's black girl magic. When it fails, it's
It's black men's fault.
black men's
Black
fault.
man's fault.
Black man's fault. Yeah. I also thought it was
Absolutely.
interesting that, like you said earlier, it's interesting when you look at those divorce rates, because the Census Bureau also they repeated that families that are blended have an even higher divorce rate. So if the divorce rate is already this high with first-time marriages in 5 years, the fact that so many they when they talk about blended families, they talk about when someone comes into a marriage with a child already.
Right.
So I mean, it basically becomes a cycle of failure, right? Even if you're not talking about stepfathers that are legally married, just getting involved, these relationships dissolve almost as soon as they begin.
Yeah.
And that obviously has an impact on the black men who are involved, because they can't form a family even with a single mother if they want to, because it dissolves so quickly.
Yeah.
But also the black boys who basically see these men coming in and out of the home because of the way that the environment is.
No stability. So marriage is temporary. That's where they see it.
Yeah,
That's the irony in that it's the women who have the children actually should be showing up with more humility and appreciation that the guys are even interested.
That's the old
And
concept.
women will say, well, you should, no. It's if a man's actually giving you time and energy and effort, and you already have kids, then you really should be reciprocating in some kind of in a real positive way.
That's the old contract. That old contract doesn't exist anymore.
Exactly. Because no woman today is going to allow any man to come and tell her what to do with her child, whether she's married to him or not.
Yeah.
The old stepfather
season is pretty much over.
Yeah. I think I grew up in that last era where, it got to the point where young men pretty much expected to be stepfathers at a certain point. But stepfather meant that, you had the bulk of the financial responsibility, but you could step in and spank the kid. You had impact on decision making.
Yeah, control of your household.
Yeah, that's over.
That's done. That's finished.
Yeah, then I tell you, as a boomer, we were tussling with that even when I was, of age and dealing with women and blended families and stuff like that. It was a tussle. I could tell when I came of age, I was expecting the same thing that my parents had, right? And when you got on the ground, found out it wasn't so, man, that's when the fight began. That's where the power struggles were, because you weren't getting the same women that as your mother, the same women that your father had. Okay, so we came in expect, this is the way it's supposed to work. She has her role, I've got my role. I just go do my thing. Don't have to worry about anything. Sadly, well, I want different things than what my mama had. I said, oh shit, this is not going to work. It's gone downhill from then.
Yeah,
this is something I noticed in the last decade. Just dating, I'll have women actually ask me, "Can you cook?" At first, I didn't think nothing of it because I tend to cook better than most of the women I meet. But I started to notice over time,
unfortunately.
Well, they couldn't, right? So I started to notice over time it was this dynamic where they were expecting me to pay bills, to pay for their children all the way through college, and cook. And this was so when we talk about cooking and cleaning,
Did she say it with a deep voice?
Well, hold on. Really. But we hear these kind of things, where all you men just talk about cooking and cleaning. You guys are archaic. You're cavemen. But it's actually women that have expectations of men playing a role from back in the 50s and playing a woman's role from back in the 50s. You're expected to play both. You got to play both roles. And she and as one woman said to me, your money is my money is my money, and this is how we and this is a comfortable belief that more women have than people want to admit. But it's ridiculous,
So if they're not going to cook and be domestic, and what are they going to do?
And then serve you sex as they deem it necessary.
Yes. So I guess the big question for me is then, because like I said, I believe we're done, but I always have to pose the question: is this culturally intractable?
You want the hopeful answer. You want the black pill answer.
Give it to me. Wriggling.
Give us the black pill.
It's done. If you look at what Clark said in 1965 about the tangle pathology and what's going on, It's already here. It's actually throughout the whole culture, black culture, man, from top to bottom. It's done. Like I said a long time ago, man. Basically, you need to if the house has fungus throughout the whole house, what do?
You
Burn it.
burn the
You
house
burn
down.
it down and build another one, right?
Right.
You can't fix rot that's in the house. Okay.
It was interesting. I was having a conversation with a social worker about this. Well, he designed a program around this principle, and it ties in exactly what BGS just said. Kurt Lewin's law of behavioral psychology, right?
Mm-hmm.
And his law basically stated that behavior is a function of personality and environment, right?
Mm-hmm. I guess. Yeah.
Now we know that the environment, for the most part, is not going to change overnight, right? And we know that the personality, which Kurt he basically described as the life field, as this whole huge thing, but we could just look at it as the culture.
Yeah, what
right?
you're born with. Now, the personality is what you're born with. That's your inner being. Okay, that's what I do when I do astrology and what they call Jungian psychology, right? That's imprinted on you at birth. That's your personality at birth. Okay, that doesn't change, and your environment shifts, adjusts that your mass, your personality, our personality, to actually adapt into the world. What Heidegger calls being thrown into your environment, and your personalities and the environment basically shape your culture.
I just look at these things as, I had a conversation with my friend. He's engaged.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him after the Ravens, were playing and won. It was a funny conversation that he had.
Mm-hmm.
When I said, the dating world sucks right now. And he's like, I don't see it suck. I see a bunch of women out here. I said, yeah, you see a bunch of women out here because men don't want to deal with them anymore like that. And fundamentally so, because anybody who has any damn good sense will be the hell out of the way. And you're like, I said, you don't know how many people make themselves insufferable to deal with them.
Yeah, they preach marriage to men and whoredom to women. That doesn't work.
So, okay, then the question is, where do we go from here? I mean, that's the big question. Where do we go from here?
Well,
You're going to have to go ahead, Adam. I'm sorry.
Well, I think what we're seeing now, I think it's not so much a question of where we go from here, but how this phenomenon develops, because we're already looking at what men are doing. We're seeing the turn that men are taking, right? And we're also seeing men withdraw. So men are already taking actions, but a favorite YouTuber of mine, he used to say that getting men to do something together is like herding cats. Right?
I wonder who that was.
I wonder who that
is. And it's like it is true. It's when you do get men together to do something, it's phenomenal. But because men are so individualist, when that unity falls apart, then not much can be done. And so when you have the collective of black men gathered together, right, as VGS said, the black community in America was created, it was forged, right? So it's not an organic community, right? We were assigned black women, and we came forth largely through the breeding farms, right? And so when we had that structure, that outside pressure keeping the community together, you had black men who were working together as a unit and pulling everything together. And now that black men are starting to withdraw and start to go their own separate ways, I mean, there is nothing to do. There's nothing left.
But see, I don't think that, I'm sorry, but I don't think that problem is really that big, because, for instance, if you put men, especially young men, in an organization such as the military or such as in sports and things like that, where we have a collective goal, men tend to organize very well because we collectively want to win. And that's, I know we talked about this before, but that's usually answered with single sex education for boys. And of course, military experience, that's another good one. Anything that has a sort of some type of fraternal structure or hierarchy that men can compete against each other and then climb, boys tend to do well in those types of areas, and that pretty much solves our problem.
Well, I mean, if we're speaking in the context of a community and of marriage, I mean, if we're talking about just learning in general, I agree with you 100%. If we're talking about in the context of a community and marriage, why would men with no wives fight and die and sacrifice themselves, either literally or figuratively, for women and their children by other men? It's simply just not. And the thing is, we're watching the answer right now because we're in the phenomenon. We're living in the coincident. Right, we're looking at coincident indicators and seeing what's happening in this moment. But this is already happening. The Gen Z, millennial men, and a lot of Gen X men, as we all see on this panel as well, are already pulling back. So
lying flat, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you, the only thing that make men want to kill or die for their country is because of the brother next to them on their left or right.
Precisely.
And that's it.
That's
and
it.
When you fundamentally find out the reason why they try to put women in the girls in the Boy Scouts, because the Boy Scouts were that goddamn effective. Think about it. In the 60s, I was reading an article. Before you could call yourself a Boy Scout, it's not the military, just the Boy Scouts. You had to be proficient in boxing, wrestling, judo, fencing, stick fighting, marksmanship, manly stuff. How do you have already a Girl Scouts? It's not my fault y'all system sucks. It's the fact that when you're in the Girl Scouts, women do not like to do the daring and much more dangerous things. They still don't. They just want all the money that, the secretary wants to get paid as much as the firefighter. And when you look at this, right, this is the same reason why they will fight tooth and nail against same-sex schools for boys. Because they know if those men get to the ear of them boys, there's no control over them anymore. Wait a minute, I can go to college? I don't have to stay here with my mom? I don't have to be burdened down with the family's bills like I've married every damn female in my family? See, I'm going to fundamentally say it before we get into nameless. Black men are not allowed to dream. Black men are not allowed to be anything. I've said this for years. The three things the Black community don't give a damn about: Black boys, education, and being the heroes of your narrative. You pretty much are in Wakanda forever. You're taking a back seat. Until you say, I'm going to be the hero, you're going to forever take that back seat. Go ahead, Nameless. Oos and whoo.
To the chat and the instructors on the panel.
What's going on, Nameless?
Fam.
This is the way, good sir.
Mariari no Michi. This is definitely the way.
Oh man, that
it's
over there.
It's we talked about this earlier, BGS. At its core, getting to the black pill answer as to why this is happening. And again, bigger picture, fertility rates are nosediving.
Right.
They're nosediving. And they're nosediving because in this modern era, having children is an option for women. And women still remain the gatekeepers, the portals to family. And as a result, there's a fundamental question that has to be asked. If children are not front and center with regards to family and family creation, what point exists in marriage for men then? I can't think of one. You can get companionship from an AI at this point, and it's going to be a thing in the very, very near future, and it already is depending on where in the world you are. The issue with this is, with the advent of not just the first industrial wave, but now we're getting into the fourth industrial wave being presented, where the question of humanity and purpose is called and mobilized. What's being exposed now is a very old problem I think occurred before the gregarian societies were placed together. And it was the fact that when you didn't have this institution of marriage as we understand it from an Abrahamic perspective, and in an environment where human beings could aggregate resources, if you didn't have the threat of men having to check other men in society overall maybe didn't have the same necessary purpose and function as it pertains to your immediate acquisition of resources. I think men started to serve a much greater purpose and function on a psychological level when it came down to the introduction of skills to human beings. And I think this is a area I want to focus in. I'm probably going to do a video on this and really get into the evo psych aspect of what is the purpose of men, because we understand this in the form of initiation when we get into what occurs in child development when a child is offered to the circle of men when they reach the age of 7 and older. And Boy Scouts were mentioned previously. This is the time period where skills are introduced, and the idea of offering these skill sets so that the boys can be set on a trajectory is very, very important. What I think is being overlooked in a lot of modern psychology now is the psychological effects that having the role of father has played in the lives of human beings in general. The formulation of altruism, which goes beyond just your biological need as far as those bottom two parts of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. When you reduce human beings to just getting their base physiological needs met, the non-physical needs go unattended. And I think that is a very critical role that a lot of the evidence is showing the role of fathers plays. But in this paradigm where women can subsidize those physical roles by virtue of the state and lean on technology to replace a lot of these things, the role of men has been redundant to the point where it's only been reduced and deduced to providing those physical needs, i.e. what we see is the ConcuServe that you guys have described before, either ATM or vitamin D dispenser. Those non-physical needs go completely unavoided, or rather avoided, not accounted for, discounted, and seen as some form of oppression. But the consequences of that are all of these psychological needs, in particular of the boys, but also with the women, not being met, and the capacity for altruism falling through the floor, which I think is critical for community building and relationship building in general.
But I think what you're saying is also important for men who are finding women knocking on their door again. I mean, what have we been calling it? The "Hey Big Head" text?
Correct, because the environment's changing.
When women are coming back because of the environment, you're talking about men who, fundamentally haven't reconciled, what the hell is this? You have some that are figuring out that it's very practical on women's end. But for those who haven't figured that component out, there's a lot of confusion about what this is about, because in many respects, our roles, as you've been pointing out, have been called into question to such a degree that, one could argue that younger generations in particular don't have a sense of what manhood is for. Right. So what does it mean when she knocks on your door again? And you haven't even been taught that manhood has value. That's one of the things we've been talking about in this space for the longest. We talk about value. We talk about emotional labor in the relationship. When I brought those things up, men really responded because nobody had told us we had value. I grew up in the 80s. That's not what the language was about. It was about serving and servicing women. It wasn't about you had value. Even if you had, income or whatever, those weren't part of the discussion. So I think what you're laying out is important. And it's going to answer questions, or at least force discussions that we haven't really been having on the scale we need to have it.
I think it's important because this is what's actually being looked at in psychology currently. There's a habit for the sake of progress to follow this Western paradigm of deducing things to their lowest common denominator or the sum of their parts, and then assume that they can break something down to their individual biological segments and then just piece it back together again like they're Lego blocks, when in reality, they've just killed whatever it is they're observing. When you try to deduce human beings to these sum of their parts kind of modality, and you remove roles that human beings have put in place for each other with regards to institution building, in particular family, that's one of the unintended consequences as a result of that. And seeing the father role as strictly this idea of breadwinner that's never around, they have fundamentally damaged a non-physical aspect that human beings still required, that they're only now noticing the absence of. It's kind of like how human beings, or rather modern society, didn't know anything about radiation, but they're still suffering the effects of it by being exposed to it. And it took a lot of other things to realize eventually that even though you can't see it, these are things that are causing you harm, and you need to take precautions to address it and measures to address it if you're going to engage in the kind of behavior that exposes you to it.
Well, and they've been, just like with radiation, they've been really slow to admitting that it's the men's presence that's not only required, at this point, but has been for a while now. They won't admit it. They won't admit it.
But you know what?
I wanted to make a quick comment on that, just briefly, because I thought it was very interesting, especially what you just mentioned, Nameless. Because I was reading some social science studies specifically talking about father involvement, and they admitted that in the past they had pretty much, because they found a strong correlation between time spent with the child, they just deduced that the amount of time a father spent with the child was all they needed. And that created a whole slew of policies that mandated that fathers spend a certain amount of time with children, but they never checked the quality of that time spent and the circumstances under which it was spent. And so when they began to understand that later on, they had to change their approach. It just shows exactly what you're saying, that they look at the individual parts, but masculinity, and especially Black masculinity, is a gestalt. It's greater than the sum of its constituent parts, and they have yet to really truly understand that in its full measure.
This, what I was going to say, because this is one of the problems that I have with this new technological age that we're entering into. At the end of the day, we're still humans. We're the same humans that we were 10,000 years ago. We haven't changed, and that's one of the biggest issues because it's just a Nameless's point. Here we are talking about fatherhood and things that we know that, children need from fathers. Yet as we plow ahead, we're talking about replacing those things with something that's artificial. And we know that that's not going to work. That's the reason why, artificial companionship, I don't think that's going to work, because what we get from other humans is it's more than what we can get from most things that we get that's artificial. It's sort of like,
how that's being circumvented, unfortunately.
How is that?
The odd rise of a lack of empathy, psychopathic and sociopathic behavior that's baked into the personality of the majority of human beings being brought forward right now, because they're characteristics that are actually being selected for because they're seen as attractive and compatible with this current environment.
That's because
and also the isolation that the urban environment is actually causing. Go back and look at the Marsutopia studies, right? It's built into the biology. So that what they're doing is actually adapting this kind of AI to the biology that's already there. They're trying to solve a problem that's already there.
You got to realize when you're doing studies with crime, a lot of guys don't figure this out. Why are the guys who are the criminals getting all the girls? Because women live vicariously through men in one way or another. If they could do all the criminal activities that men can do, they wouldn't be with you. But they want that safety to be like, I want to be in it, but I still want that blanket. That I want to be able to say, I didn't know, even though you benefited from every activity he committed. You got to think about this. And Nameless just said it. There's no empathy. It was a video, that chick over there, curly things, clip. Oh my God, don't leave, Black women, stay with us. She had a guest on her show when she was like, 80% of divorces are by women, and the girl, who had to be younger than probably about the oldest, I'll give her, is 23. And she was smiling, "Yay, go live your good life." And she broke it down like, why are you being happy? This guy is coming home, just like my sergeant said, my first sergeant. And he was like, half your stuff is gone. You're lucky if you still have stuff in the house. Your kids are gone. You get a notice that says, "I'm leaving. And oh yeah, by the way, I'm going to take you to court bring the kids here, and sometimes you get these cases where the women force the kids to lie, the freaking lie, and you're going through the most miserable time of your life. And imagine if you're in a profession where you got to be on point. So the empathy for men has not existed in the last 50, 60 years because men have been looked at as interchangeable. And women really believe, oh, I could get another man, and they can't. You can't even stay with the man you make your kids with. I've always told women, you don't outrank your baby daddy. The man you give a kid, do I need to say that again for the Negroes in the back?
Yes, you do.
You don't outrank your baby daddy.
My family members, but they ain't gonna listen. Go ahead.
And they ain't gonna listen. You do not outrank your baby daddy. The person whose kids you bear, and it takes you nearly a year to produce, shows this is the class and the level that you can obtain. I don't give a damn if you could get a degree. I could teach my cat, if he pays attention long enough, he could probably touch the right buttons to pass a damn test nowadays. It's so easy. You just decided to show the world where you really rank. But then you notice the guy can't take care of the kids because he has another set of kids. Oh my God, women logic. I never understood women. Why do you want kids from a guy who has a whole flock? I digress. And I'm like, you didn't see that he wasn't taking care of his other kids and you thought you were different? That's the reason why when people talk about female leadership, I shudder. I said that's the most oxymoronic thing you can ever say, female leadership. But go ahead, somebody take this mic.
So I just wanted to highlight another point that was brought up earlier. It's something you had actually mentioned, Charles. I got a link in the back chat here, and you guys can take a look at that if you want, or even post it and share it with folks down in the chat.
Did you want me to open it up?
If you can. I mean, it'd be good for people's notes. I mean, when we're talking about divorce and suicide with regards to men, I just covered this the other day in a live stream I did in one of my Blade meditations for the morning. You know, it's ridiculous, but I don't think people put it in the proper scope. When we talk about men divorcing and self-deletion, men are 9 times more likely to self-delete. 9 times more than women.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
women they attempt it way more than men. Men complete it far more than women.
But it's to the point where you could almost cite divorce as a risk for men.
Yes.
To the point where it's like the way we know that smoking induces cancer, divorce has the potential to induce suicide in men. It is a healthy statement to say that, an accurate statement to say that. And that is so frustrating. And we're getting back to that lack of empathy, lack of recognition. Then we look at all the resources that are actually allocated to help women with this.
Yeah.
But they're not there for men.
Yeah.
You know, Nameless, it's even sadder when you got to talk. And I mean, these are some strong brothers. I mean, I've seen them fight off guys 4 times their size. Chase down people on foot while wearing 30 pounds of gear. Get in shootouts and not even blink. But you tell that man you breaking up his family, his life crumbles. His disposition is gone. People don't care. And it's, you know what? A lot of people gave Jordan Peterson flack for crying. But goddamn, I'm going to tell you, it's so funny when you have officers and soldiers come to your house. I'm surprised I don't have my PhD in psychology. And people are crying because they're like, look, you're the only person who don't judge. You just listen.
Yeah.
And it's nobody's listening to these men. They're like, look, I just want to be heard. You know, I'm going through this. I just need some advice. I'm just like, and every time I give women, they're like, these men don't want to be with their kids. And I'm like, you're a goddamn lie. If a man didn't want to be around his kids, there's no, excuse my language, there's no fucking way he is going to fight in court like it's a goddamn MMA match. It doesn't correlate. What sense does it ever make? But yet, you constantly put this man through hell because you have control issues. You don't have any control over your life, so you try to control others.
Yep. And I ask a question of folks on the panel, and anybody can answer this, and even folks in the chat. I want you guys to consider this. How many men here have gone out of their way to acquire the skills that they've acquired, have come across the knowledge that they've acquired, gone to school, gone to government institutions and programs to be able to provide for themselves and protect for themselves, all for the sake of doing it only for themselves, or with a backwards intention on providing the majority of that work and effort towards acquiring a family? Which is it for you guys? Can anyone say that they did it just for themselves?
I'm gonna tell you, man. No man ever truly does it for himself.
I did it for my family.
And even if you didn't get a family, you did it for the potential to get one, correct?
Exactly.
Right.
Correct.
I don't think that fact, because I'm going to call it a fact, is appreciated, understood, or realized by the overwhelming majority of people who look at things such as, quote, pay gaps, or what we mean when we talk about traditional roles. Because the one thing a man can't do and make happen is have a child without the assistance of a woman, specifically a woman that is going to act as a gateway to bring that about. And when we talk about marriage, that's what this means to the overwhelming majority of men I come across and know. That she is a gateway. That is a gateway to institution and family. And the whole reason why we work, the reason why we acquire skills, the reason why we acquire strength in mind, body, and spirit, so that we can be an example, even if we didn't get that from our immediate home environment. We try to forge that with wherever we take a stand at and live, so that we can provide a family for ourselves and in turn use that institution to enrich our greater family. None of us are looking at this as some sort of selfish attempt to just get money for the sake of it.
Yep. You know what, Nameless?
And I think it's
I'm gonna just say this real quick. Shout out to Ninja Person, because he said the quote of the night. It's like we are Dante going through the 9 circles of hell just to make it back to purgatory.
You know what? It supports a point that I made. I think all of us was on Art New Styles, BGS, Dr. T. It's that when men are in leadership, they tend to bring up the whole family or whatever the case may be.
Right.
And when women are in leadership, they tend to only bring themselves up. So, and that's straight to Nameless's point, because in any given situation, a responsible man will stabilize an environment.
Well, even with drug dealers, even with guys who is in the streets, right? Guys who selling dope and doing illegal activities, even they do not have a selfish perspective from what they probably have children. They probably got felonies that, hey, they can't get a stable job. So, hey, I gotta do what I gotta do to provide for my family. So even they doing it for a selfless reason. Not just the educated guys. I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's interesting too, when you talk about family, we immediately think of the family we're going to produce, but those same, drug dealers, athletes, entertainers that succeed and make it, one of the first things they want to do is turn around and elevate the family they came out of. Right? How many of these brothers bragged about buying their mother a house? You know what I mean? So it's family on both ends. It's the family they're coming out of and the family they want to produce. And yet men still get characterized as selfish. This is one of the reasons that I've been talking about the last few months, as far as when men are engaged about politics, we talk communally. We talk about, whenever you see, especially during a presidential election, they interview black men about what black men think they want. We usually have fairly generic talking points, but those talking points are generic to the black community. We never really were socialized to talk about our own interests. And this is one of the things, and this is what Adam brought up earlier, I call the black masculinist turn. We're having to say, you know what? this communal idea. You can't do it by yourself. And if there's no participation, most particularly from the women who are being advanced and elevated, then at some point we do have to turn around and say, okay, what exactly do we need? It makes no goddamn sense that in 2022, if you look for an agenda for Black men, there's only one you're going to find short of the bullshit Stacey Abrams produced. But it makes no sense prior to 2020 that you cannot
agenda. With all due respect, sir, I'm just saying.
Well, I'm saying, but my point though is that it makes no sense that there aren't 20 of them that we should be referencing from different time periods, different organizations, different ideological standpoints. We shouldn't have to have created one. We should be filtering several of them to figure out what we want now. But the fact that we've never found another one tells you what Nameless is talking about is true. That's not something men thought about. We thought about the community. We never thought about ourselves in isolation. You're going to rarely find Black men answering questions publicly about what they want as a demographic, because we've not been trained to think that way. This is an awkward change for most of us to have to do so now. And one of the responses I get from people is, why? Why do you want us to do this? Because again, we're not trained to think that way. But it's reached a point where those same brothers that you're talking about, Nameless, who are sacrificing years to get to the point where they can produce a family, are looking around and finding that they don't have stable options when it comes to who they can make a family with.
Or they reduce it down to the whole reason why you're trying to get with this chick and put a quote ring on it is because you just want general access to sex.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the most intellectually insulting statements a human being can offer another human being at this point.
Sure.
Let me just go ahead.
Those type of statements, however, and I think is interesting because Dr. Curry speaks about that a lot. Is that's and Dr. Johnson has mentioned it several times. Is that type of insult is almost exclusively aimed at Black men,
right?
Because when we talk about white men getting married, they're getting married for family, right? No one talks about sexual access with them. Only when it comes to Black men do we talk about them getting married for general sexual access, because that's the same type of philosophy that comes out of white supremacist feminist ideologies from the 1920s, and that same Black male sexual beast, that ideology or that concept has been carried over till today. And so it's interesting how that type of rhetoric was if we look at it in terms of the amount of Black men who were married before, that type of rhetoric was kind of accepted because Black men you were married to these women, they're saying these type of things, they're going to college, they're getting the degrees even as far back as the 1920s, going back even at Stacey Abrams' family. She had her grandmother was educated, her mother had master's degree in divinity and so forth. She was a college librarian, and then all of her sisters have all these PhDs. So that goes back forever. They've always had this access to education and likewise this feminist rhetoric. But Black men have kind of had to deal with that stuff and stick around with it because they're married to these women. But if we notice, as the marriage rates between Black men and Black women go down, as there's fewer Black marriages, now Black men are not really putting up with that language anymore. Right? They're slowly but surely beginning to say more because there's no consequence. You don't have to live with this person. They're not in the same home. What's she going to do? Right? I mean, besides the people that you're working with at your job, for more or less, or customers at a business, there's really no consequence in your own home. And so now Black men are beginning to go against that. And that's one of the impacts of that negative marriage rate against Black men, is that Black men are now becoming more vocal because there's nothing to lose.
Right. And there's nothing to gain. You know what, Adam? I was just on last week with Concrete Rose Sister George, right? And I said, what is the benefit for a Black man to marry a woman that doesn't like them, doesn't respect them, think that they're settling for him? And she said, and one of the things, two things she actually said: one, she's gonna help you make money; two, in-house pussy. Okay. And nothing about family, nothing about that, right? So what you just said about the 1920s feminism, and what about the access to sex, okay, and resources, came right out of her mouth. Why you should get married to a Black woman?
Well, also to kind of add on to your point, a lot of that is to regulate Black male procreation. which is eugenics. It is a form of eugenics. It is to keep black people, black men from procreating, and a part of that is kind of like what do you call for lack of better terms but anyway, it is to keep the black men from procreating. And our own women, it's scary to hear them say that abort black babies. You know, to abort the black males, abort the black male babies.
But what's also interesting is, as you saw, everybody in here saw the reports about sperm.
Yeah, the 2% availability.
Yeah. That is starting to scare the shit out of people, because now they're realizing, oh my God, black male sperm is worth something.
Ghostface, though.
Interesting shift.
I mean, they didn't help their argument when they started having these cases where dudes who were in these banks that were offering getting child support files opened up on them. I mean, that just didn't help.
Yeah. Nope.
But
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Because I need to step it back a little bit, because I'm not really understanding what Ghostface is saying when he's talking about controlling black male procreation. Could you elaborate on that a bit?
Absolutely. Eugenics, which we all know was created by Margaret Sanger.
Right.
Basically, to some people, it's a philosophy that black men, black people, are only created by the sperm of black men, right? So when they say mix, we all understand the blood quantum laws in America. Mix is mix, right? But to some people, that's not so. Only black men can create black people. So by doing so, right, by regulating black males procreating, by not making black people come from the sperm of a black man, you reduce the numbers of actual black people, and specifically black men. So this is why they have the campaign of abort black male babies. That's something very important. Like, this is something it goes back. It's deeper than what we know it to be. So it's, if you kind of understand what I mean. If you need me to elaborate more.
I understand it, but it's not going to do any good anyway, because that's fine when black men had a cap on who they could date, mate, and procreate with. Okay, in the 1930s it makes sense, and in the 2020s it doesn't make sense because there's no more cap.
And it's also with the fact, I mean, because there were plenty of black men who had families across town too. I don't think black men have ever really been in practice restricted except for by race.
Well, I mean, exactly. That was what I was about to say, that black men could have families across town, but they didn't bring mixed babies into the family and tell his wife she had to raise them. Right? All those the cousins and uncles that have the mixed skin. Those are coming from grandma. That wasn't coming from grandpa.
Well, it goes back to the whole thing of why black women were, always able to lay down and get children by the slave master, and when the black man lay with the white woman, he gets killed for it. You understand what I mean? It was the whole was it that Plessy v. What's it with the
Plessy versus Ferguson?
That's what it is? Plessy versus Ferguson, with the black woman marrying the white man.
No. That was Loving versus Virginia.
Well, Loving versus Virginia. Sorry, the Loving versus Virginia. Right. This is why it took a black woman and a white man to push that. A black man and a white woman could not have never made that happen. It had to be a white man and a black woman. See, black men will get killed for that. But they hated Frederick Douglass. I mean, they hated Jack Johnson. They created laws against Jack Johnson, right? Or the Mann Act. They created laws because he, dealing with these white women. They hated that. They didn't want black men mingling and procreating with white women. They didn't even want us procreating with our own women. So yeah.
And I think it's interesting when we juxtapose what Nameless said about the way that black men sacrifice to build resources, and this is a lifelong endeavor. This is from childhood. Like I remember back when I was a kid, I was like, man, I want to get married, I want to have kids, and adults would say, oh, you want to do this? Well, you better go to school, you better learn how to do this, you better get good grades, right? And this is training from childhood. preparing yourself to get married in your 30s or earlier, or trying to get married earlier, but ends up in your 30s after you get accomplished, after you get your degree, and then juxtapose that with what BGS said was said on the show Sister George, and what Black women believe Black men wanted out of a family, right?
Well,
so needless to say, this is what we want out of a family. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It goes even deeper too, because there's a lot of us that are in the chat right now that had the experience of parents divorcing early. And so we were told that we were the man of the house around 6, 7, 8 years old. And so here we are trying to work an effective model that is animated by I'm going to call it an inverse masculinity paradigm that puts you in a compensatory state where your experience to the ADOS aggregate in general, by virtue of your household, is in this masculine, this compensatory masculine paradigm. So you're overworking these ideas and virtues of which you are approximating manhood to be, and you're doing everything you can to not be that. And when you get into this position, you're left, in a sense, just culturally inept, essentially, to deal with the kind of woman that you're supposed to be paired with, only to find out that even the woman that you're supposed to be paired with, if she sees you as her equal, you're not seen as having enough intrinsic value to make her involvement with you seen as equal. And that's if she has a measure of trust that you can even perform the role that she was taught you were supposed to perform by virtue of her experience in the household with people who look like you do. So like this really just furthermore gets into the fundamental problem of why we struggle with relationship building, because I think very few of us are prepared to or have been socialized outside of a mutually parasitic relationship modality where it's animated by this mutual exploitation. I don't think we're taught what symbiotic relationships look like, where it's an equal one-to-one egalitarian argument, let alone one that's synergetic, where you've got two parts, you've got 1 + 1 = 5. That's synergetic. That can happen, but that only happens when two people are performing a role to achieve a greater goal of institution. When you're stuck in this compensatory modality where the woman is coming from this hungry ghost animation where her understanding of masculinity is something that provides that which she didn't get in her environment, as can be compared to Maslow's pyramid of needs. And then men that are being animated in this energy of compensatory masculinity where they're compensating for the man not being there, and they're trying to gain approval of the mother by virtue of the person they're trying to have a relationship with. It's this cycle of exploitation that's going on that's very toxic, but it's only made to work because of the ConcuSurf matriarchal dynamic, and it's pretty much gynocracy.exe. And I don't know how you make that work.
It's not just expectation, it's exploitation.
That's what I said, mutual exploitation of each other. That's seen as, quote, a balanced relationship in general with us.
Yeah, it's there's no trust, there's no admiration. Women tend to want men they can look up to and brag about. But in our culture, they will have babies with the lowest of the low. I told BGS this, and he always laughs or says something. I said, I'm a lot more blunt in real life than on YouTube. So it's like, I'm like, how the hell do you get with a grown ass man who doesn't know how to write a resume? And you had a baby bomb.
It's a grown man seeking control.
It's grown man control, and plus that she's designating what her class is by doing that.
I told her, once again, you don't outrank your baby dad.
Baby dad, yeah.
And besides, the "You Ain't Gonna Be Mrs. Cartwright" t-shirts are coming out in the spring. and I looked at her. She was like, well, I said, you cannot talk that same BS to a man who outranks both your children's fathers. I said, that does not apply. Well, I said, here's the question. Did your man travel before you met him or after you met him? I said, because really, I've been around the world before you even realized what it was. You were still in middle school. I was competing over there in freestyle wrestling. There's not shit that you could tell me. But constantly, like I said in the chat earlier, you can't debate facts. But when it comes to black women, they'll be at their damnedest to do so. They will tell you 2 plus 2 is 5 and will be staunched down, heels dig deep in the dirt. I know 2 plus 2 is 5. You can't tell me nothing, Negro. I got my bachelor's and my master's and PhD in basket weaving. I'm smart. And you just shake your head and just walk off because you don't, you never interrupt the idiot making a mistake.
But you know what, Charles? It's a funny thing about this because, all right, I've been married twice. And for the record, I enjoyed being married until, the ish fell apart. That's always the sucky part. But the highlights of my marriage were always when the power imbalance was in my favor. And she enjoyed that most. Both my wives did. And so that's the reason why I don't understand this egalitarian in, relationships like marriage, because it just doesn't seem to work. And the relationship doesn't work like that in the first place. And mind you, both my wives work.
Yeah. And it's funny, Dead said that you said that because women are like cats. If you put the string slightly out of their reach, they will spend hours, if not a whole day, trying to get that string.
Yep.
You give them the whole ball of yarn, they'll play with it for a few minutes and then walk off like they never had it. And like you said about the power dynamics, women are attracted to powerful men. Men who can make stuff happen, knows what happens, and can avoid something actually happening. They've been convinced in this egalitarian bullshit that has been a detriment to them. I'm like, no, I want a guy who can express their feelings. Are you attracted to men like that? Well, if you got to say that, then the answer is no.
Yeah. And I think it's as far as the, in relation to the question of how this impacts black men, and we've spoken in length and in detail about how this affects adult black men of different cohorts from Gen X to millennials, Gen Z. But when you think about the boys as well, the type of families that they're growing up in, if you look at the pure economics of it, we're going to see an increase in black male homelessness. It's still trending up, right? Divorce is also strongly correlated with homelessness. So black men who do get married are more likely to become homeless. But in addition to that, you have just the black boys as they're growing up. We know that they don't get investment institutionally. They don't get any philanthropic support. There's no grants for them. And the mothers don't invest in them scholastically. And so what becomes of them, right? They become homeless. Many of them become homeless, especially as now, especially around the country, the government's trying to get out of the business of public housing. So a lot of public housing around the country is being sold to private firms. And while the families still living in public housing get the same rights that they had while the government was still monitoring it. Many of these RAD buildings, once those families move out, they don't hand the apartment down. There's an unspoken rule, but before, people kind of handed down their subsidized apartments to their children. So you'd have generations living in public housing where the grandmother handed over the lease to her daughter and so on and so forth. But that's coming to an end. So as you see the eviction rates of black women go up, that also means that these black boys will find themselves homeless and unsheltered. And they will be unsheltered until 18, and then they get kicked out. And the cycle of homelessness repeats. You can also look at these labor participation rates, which measure how many people are actively looking for work, right? And also people who are in the labor force. And when you see black men's labor participation rates, it's been going down by about 15% over the past 50 years. And I believe that a part of that, at least in recent years, could be this despondency factor, this hopelessness, that if this is all I'm going to be, and this is all it is, then why bother? And we're going to see if the family falls apart and that structure falls apart, this is not going to have a positive impact on boys. The boys will become despondent. They will begin giving up. And so this is, I believe, a very serious issue. As far as the men are concerned, in adulthood, yes, once you've worked and become the man you are today, this impacts you because there's no one to marry, there's no one to form a stable family with. But for the boys that are here now, when they get to this age, many of them will be in a disparate state, and that will be a terrible thing to see. So if we want to see Black boys doing better, then something has to be done to help the Black family. And the only solution is having Black men, and that can only be done by means of the Black male political agenda.
All right. Now, what I want to do, and shout out to Adam for that. That was powerful. I want to give brothers an opportunity to give their closing thoughts, and we'll just snake it back from the end of the line to the beginning. Starting with Brother Nameless. You dropped a lot. It's much appreciated. I think brothers have plenty of food for thought. I'm seeing it in the comment section, and I'm so grateful to all of you, for elevating the nature of the discussion so we can leave people with that. Well, give us your closing thoughts on these conversations, good brother.
I'm going to sum it up to one word. This can be fixed overnight if you prioritize empathy. In this fourth industrial wave, that's going to be one of the first things that will become a scarcity, because the definition of human being is going to be called into question. It already is now. And without that, you don't get altruism. And people are going to find out very quickly that the oversimplification of why human beings were successful, this idea of survival of the fittest, has been challenged by kin selection. And I challenge anybody that's listening now to start doing a little bit of research on kin selection, what it means, how it works, and how it ties into group selection and the creation of altruism and why it exists. And I can promise you, any group of people who are successful, particularly post-agrarian society, you don't get human beings being where they are without empathy and the ability to relate with other human beings that are around you. If you can't trust the person next to you, you can't form a relationship. If you can't form a relationship, you don't get community. You just get people you live by. And without any of that, you're not going to have what it is you're asking for. And you should not be surprised whenever Black men, if they have the ability to, when they come across other groups of people who see them as a human being first, and you find that they prefer being around those other individuals, don't be surprised if they leave and don't want to come back. They look at you very differently. I think that's at the core of what we're talking about. If we can't get that from people who look like us, that speak the same language and vernacular that we do, you can't hold it against people to get around folks who will. It's really that simple. It's not the product. It's a customer service issue. And the irony is there's products that are even better elsewhere because they've been brought up to be that way. There's nothing stopping anyone here in America from doing the same thing. It's just that in this environment, they don't have to. And they've been taught that family's an option. And very quickly, people are going to learn that's not been the case at all. But with that said, Doc, thanks for having me up. Wari wari no michi. This is the way. Thanks for having me up, fam.
Thanks for coming up, man. Appreciate that. Adam, go ahead and give us your closing thoughts.
Oops, I just had to say that. Peace, Nameless. I think it's. I think this is a very vital subject, a very important question, and just the multiple areas, categories in which this one question can be analyzed is astounding to me. But the solution is straightforward, and it still rests in that Black male political agenda. What I find very interesting, and I'm going to end at this point, is that Black men and Black women right now, our objectives, our ideologies, our concepts about family structure and life in general is different. Black women want to maintain more of the status quo in the community. Black men want to change. But as weird as it sounds, Black men and Black women, I see based on the data trends, are going to become unlikely allies. Because as far as the data is concerned, the Black women are beginning to trend in the same direction as Black men. Black men are leading in homelessness, and Black women are leading in evictions. Black women's labor participation rate was increasing rapidly since the 60s, and now for the past 20 years, it's been decreasing. in correlation with black men, right? Across the board, black men and black women, as far as the data is concerned, are beginning to have a strong correlation on a downtrend. So when BGS was speaking about the coffee girls, when he was speaking about the hey big tech, hey big head techs, that's all a matter of the economics and other factors that are showing that we're actually going to end up going in the right direction. But by means of black men focusing on ourselves, we'll be able to lead the charge in the right direction, and the black women who want to form a community with black men and form those families will survive. And so the solution points to what you've been advocating for over 2 years, and that's for black men to focus on policy, and that will bring the environment necessary for us to have healthy black women, healthy black men, healthy black children, and a healthy black family.
Right. Much appreciation, bro. Much appreciation. Thanks for coming through. Dead set. That cool ass voice, man. Break it down for us, man. Give us the closing thoughts.
Okay. To be quick, a man puts his seeds on parable of the sower. Well, y'all know how it goes. Brothers, what I'm saying to you is there's a reason why Christ went to the Gentiles, because those MFers that he was dealing with were corrupt. So plant your seeds in fertile ground, and this ground here ain't fertile no more.
I must plant my seed in fertile soil.
Yes, this soil is no longer fertile. Like this BGS, it's done. It's a wrap.
It's a wrap. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sad to report back, but it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are fertile fields elsewhere. Go there.
Right.
And build your institutions there. That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
I hear you. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for dropping the word, and I mean it. When the court case is done, I'm waiting for the book, man.
Would you please edit it for me? All right, y'all, take it easy.
All right, brother. Peace. Kevin, go ahead and give us your closing thoughts, man.
Professor, gentlemen, as always, thanks for letting me up, and you guys offered some really great wisdom, good solid information backed by the data, facts, and statistics, things that men like to talk about and actually base common sense arguments and discussion on. That being said, let's not ask the question about why men aren't getting married. Well, if you do ask that question, then start asking for details and let that man speak about the reasons that he's looking around and he's seeing what's out here and what's being offered to him and why he's refusing to participate. And I'll say this, as I always say to you, Professor, that I'm a self-proclaimed mid-level academic. I don't have my PhD as of yet, but you're a real one as when it relates to academic, high-level, honest discussion. Because one of the things that I look at when somebody's having these conversations, what are they leaving out? When I can look at it from a logical standpoint and just kind of shoot holes in the argument. I've seen people with all this training and all this information and all of this academic work that they do be dishonest. And as somebody who really counts on people who have these high level certifications, I'm looking for honesty there. So I appreciate what it is you do, and you're a real one. So thanks for what it is you're doing. We appreciate you.
I appreciate your support, man. Thank you. All right, man. Appreciate that. Ghostface, go ahead and give us your closing thoughts, please.
All right. I just want to say a couple of things. I'll be brief, right? Black men, for us, I think the most important thing that we need amongst each other is a strict code of conduct, right? A strict code of conduct. What comes by this, right? Nations are built when men are on code with each other. Militaries are formed when men are on code with each other. We got to understand something. Either the women, they're going to fall in line, or they're going to just basically fall by the wayside. One thing I can say about our women is they do operate on a code of conduct because we know our women are hive-minded. One thing's for certain is that there can be a room full of black women, right? And they can all disagree with each other, right? And You as a black man walk into that room and you have an argument with one of those women, I guarantee you, all of them women are gonna be on code against you. They're gonna all come. We've all seen this. It happened.
Right.
They have a code of conduct that we don't have. So we have to form this. And I know a lot of our brothers they're waking up. We're starting to get this. We're starting to get this slowly but surely. A lot of people are trying to stop it. They're trying to, they're trying to throw, monkey wrenches into it. They're trying to throw things, curve balls at us. But the brothers are waking up, and brothers have different ideologies, Hebrews, Muslims, 5%ers, whatever. We're not gonna agree on everything, but one thing we do need to have is at least is a code, a strict code of conduct. And whether what comes from that, progress. Whether or not some people might want to take it to politics or whatever it may be. But I think once we develop that code, we can move forward better, and politics will follow us. Because we're gonna be the powerhouse. And I yield.
All right, man. Appreciate that. Thanks for coming through. Hope you will come back in the future. So good to have you. Colonel Panthro. Go ahead and give us your thoughts, man.
To Nameless, I say fire style, fireball, jitsu. That just gives me enough time to open up the 8 gates. He gets the reference. The situation between black women not being married is the equivalent of the USSR creating the Tsar bomb. If you're not familiar with that bomb, that's the most powerful nuke that was ever created and tested in human history. Imagine seeing a mushroom cloud that's 100 miles above ground. The devastation was so massive that the shock wave broke windows 500 miles away. Think about it. As much as a hard-on as the Cold War was, even the Soviets said, look, we can't do this anymore. We can't go any higher because what's the point of being a king without a kingdom? It's just going to create nothing but devastation. But here's the separation between the Soviets and black women. Black women don't understand the devastation that they've created. They will make a bigger bomb and let it explode. See, this bomb that I speak about is a generational bomb. They have no respect for their men, they have no respect for their children, and they damn sure don't have any respect for their womb. There's an old saying, if you and I and BGS robbed a bank, we're the ones going to jail if we get caught.
Mm-hmm.
But a woman can mess up 3 to 4 generations with her womb alone.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I made the comparisons is because they don't even see the mushroom cloud above them. They can't perceive the damage and the generational curses they have exposed their children to, like radiation poisoning. I say to this for black men, it's done, but have faith. These are not the only black women in the world.
No, that's true.
If you want a deal, I'm going to tell you the same thing. I said it earlier. The best reversal is to never get in a situation or hold in the first place. You don't have to expend energy to a situation you've never been in. Save yourselves. Guess what? Be the hero of your own damn narrative. Woo! If you want to catch me on my channel, Charles Faulkner Jr., and we'll talk about it. Always a pleasure, fellas. Woo! I'm out.
Right.
Nameless,
All
hand
right.
me that smoke bomb.
Much appreciation, good brother. Oh, hey, oh man, he left.
He's
Damn.
gone.
Yeah,
Oh, he can still hear you. Yeah.
I was gonna tell him, hey man, Charles, put your stuff in the chat where people can find the channel and your information about your new business venture. So I wanted you to do that on air, but do it in the chat if nothing else, bro. All right. And the man of the hour, brother BGS. Appreciate you doing this. Yeah, as usual. You'll come through in the clutch, but go ahead and give people your thoughts about all of this, man.
Oh man, it's one by one we got to detangle this mess, and one by one we got to detangle all these myths that have been built up about black men. If we're ever going to get to the bottom of this, right? Because what Charles says is it can be a nuclear blast, and they'll look up and it says pretty colors. They don't deal with the blast; they deal with the fallout after it's too late. And it's and they're still going in the wrong direction. So, uh, did black men want to separate from their families, from their community? No, but guess what? We got to do what we got to do because like I was telling Omar Wally what SYSBM has become to me. Okay, it's it started off as a group that actually wanted to date out, get away from the black community. Now it's morphed into SYSBM, Save Yourself Black Man, because nobody's coming for you at all. White women, white men, black women, they're not coming for you. So if you don't save yourself, nobody's going to do it. That's why we talk about the gender gap. Okay, nobody talks about that. All the metrics across all these spectrums, right? Black men are so far down behind their women as far as the gender gap. It's not even funny. It took a Brookings Institute author to actually say the same damn thing. Anything you can measure, black men don't even measure up as far as black women. But the thing is, we always claim that we're in charge and we're the blame for everything. So, like you said, Doc, when it succeeds, even in marriage, even in divorce, even in family, right? It succeeds, it's black girl magic. When it fails, it's black men's fault. Can't escape that. So, you have to embrace being the bad guy. I learned that under Dadishi a long time ago. You have to embrace it. Okay. Because you're not going to escape it. You're not going to get around it. At the end of the day, no matter how it turns out, it's going to be your fault if it goes wrong. So embrace the bad guy and get used to it.
Man. Well, hey, as fire dropped, shit, that's something to wrestle on, especially considering how long many of us spent, and I can speak for myself, being a nationalist since I was about 15, my whole thing was bigging up the community, uplifting it, but it never dawned on me at any point in that time that black men's efforts in that regard, the contempt and the dismissal of a lot of that, I saw it even at a young age, but it took years for me to wrap my head around it. And it's a long, slow walk to this conclusion that many of the brothers are reaching. This is not something that brothers are happy about in the open sense. It's just the reality of where things are.
Yeah, if you can just find a unicorn, everything would be different.
Oh man!
Until you start believing in unicorns.
Well, it's almost like people that are looking to pay their mortgage with the lottery. It's at some point you're gonna have to recognize that the statistics tell you this is improbable. And just because you saw somebody on the news win it, you have no sense what the probability is that you will. And that's unfortunately where many of us are in this respect, trying to find that, what Nameless was talking about, the family structure that, you're sacrificing for, you're building careers for, and you tend to just run across people that want to use you for immediate resources and gain and have plans from the beginning to go their own way as soon as they're comfortable, or there's another monkey branch to jump on. So these things, at the end of the day, they're starting to add up, and brothers are responding accordingly.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you coming through, especially last minute. So thanks a lot, good brother.
All right, Doc.
All right. Talk to you soon. Okay. Go ahead and all right, y'all. Thank you for supporting, for coming through tonight. Again, like, share, subscribe, join, and donate. Support the channel. Make sure that you are tied into everything that's going on. So again, support the Institute for Black Male Studies. Support the Onyx Report right here on YouTube. You see the ways to do so on the screen. You got the Venmo, the PayPal, the Cash App, and the Patreon. But also support the Onyx Network, which again you can download on Android, iPhone, Amazon Fire TV, or Roku. Support that so we can continue to build and get this conversation out there. at the end of the day, man, this is not easy material for me to deal with. It hurts my heart sometimes. Sometimes I see things that just, because I have brothers that reach out and tell me personal stories that I hold in confidence at their request, or just out of, pure dignity, in terms of, some of the stories I'm told. I'm not going to put them in that position. When I get permission to share it, and if it's something that, is share worthy, I do so if there's a lesson in it for us to learn. But I can't tell you how many stories that I'm told on a weekly basis. And it's ridiculous. I mean, some of these stories are just incomprehensible in terms of how much a human being can endure. And that said, the conclusions that you heard on this panel and at several others that we've done, panels that are happening all over, social media, brothers are coming to slow conclusions that they're not necessarily happy about, but it is the reality of what we're dealing with. So that said, I support you, brothers. I hope you'll continue to participate so we can figure this out one step at a time as we persist. And the goal, of course, to improve the quality of life, most especially for Black boys and men who are often ignored, and doing so here on the Onyx Report using critical analysis. Anyway, appreciate you joining me. Y'all have a good night. Peace. I am here to tell you, brothers, we are not criminals by birth, perennial rapists, incapable intellects, man-children, sperm donors, child support wellsprings, success objects, walking phalluses, ATM machines, lottery tickets, unintelligent henchmen, valueless assassins, pro bono mercenaries, unpaid bodyguards, interchangeable stepfathers, child discipline proxies, unpaid repairmen, workhorses, emotional tampons, or any other socially accepted dehumanizing stereotype. We are thinkers, inventors, innovators, leaders, fathers, and men. Embrace your humanity, know your worth, and extend your time, attention, and resources only to those who genuinely respect you. And remember, your worth is not defined by meeting other people's narcissistic and selfish and unrealistic needs. You define your worth. Peace.